George Brauchler with you here on Thursday. We're on that downward slide. Can't wait to get to the weekend. For me, it's going to be a little bit of a week off here as I head to the UK between the bed bugs and all the goings on between, the Arab folks and the Israeli folks and all that. I don't know. I've had more people tell me, hey, are you concerned at all about traveling to London? I think I get more concerned the more people say, are you concerned? But so far, no. Hopefully it'll be a great trip. Heard from Amanda on things completely unrelated to it, so I feel like she's doing well too. Hey, it's raining out there, folks. I don't know if you've gotten out of the house. It didn't strike me at all that I would walk into a pretty good rainfall coming out of the garage, but I did. And man, I don't know how long it's supposed to rain, but this little pictogram map thing here, whatever this is that Billy makes for me, says it's supposed to be showers and cooler 58 degrees. I don't know how long that's supposed to last today, but it felt it. And then tomorrow it drops down to 54. If you'll recall earlier in the week, the frauds that are, and I mean our friends that are the weather people, had said we were going to get as low as 50 or 52 degrees. I guess they've changed their minds now. We're back up to 58 and 54. And then we climb out of it, 62 on Saturday, sunny and milder. And then a little bit of a white cloud. Don't know why it's not the hollowed out cloud on Sunday, but it's warmer, 68 degrees, then 70, 76, and then all that other stuff. So, you know, phone's ringing right now. Maybe it's a weather person calling to correct us on some of this. You know, here's the deal. I cannot seem, and you may not be able to either, escape what's going on in Israel. But I try to distract myself because this has the potential to be existential for, and I hope it is, for Hamas, maybe Gaza. I hope not. Certainly it could be for the Israelis if the Arab world turns against it, but it's everywhere. I mean, it dominates the news. Go to Drudge. I mean, everything is Israel, Israel, Israel because of just how unique and horrible this situation is, at least on the calendar. And yet there's all these other millions of things going on. In the backdrop of this is this terrorist Tim Hernadez, who is the newly installed member of the legislature. Thank God he hasn't had the ability to weigh in on a single law yet. But what is becoming its own sort of issue on social media, its own story, is the utter silence from the Dems and those in power, especially Jewish people who will not call this guy out, this Hamas lover out. I spent way too much time on Twitter over the last couple of days. I like to dip in and dip out and all this stuff, but it is revealing all the stuff that goes on. And Billy, I've never asked, do you do anything on social media, or are you sane?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm there. I post some things, but I
is it under Gov't of Colorado?
Yes, no, it's under Snake Daddy. No,
oh my God.
No, you know, but it's just friends and family stuff. But then we talked about, oddly enough, a couple of days ago, my experience recently with Twitter, and it was this weekend. And I always felt that for the cesspool of human disgusting awfulness that Twitter mostly is, the one redeeming quality was it excelled at coverage of breaking news because of how the algorithm worked and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then the weekend happened, and it concluded, in my mind, Twitter is largely worthless at this point. Absolutely, completely worthless. And it's because about every third to fourth story was just crap over what was happening in the Middle East, where normally it was about every 15th, 18th story was something that you're like, that's not even close to being true. Or this is obviously just dumb propaganda. Or why are you advertising about jorts? I mean, it didn't make any sense. And this one is every 3 to 4 tweets were just stupid. It is worthless. For me, as a social media site, that is absolutely worthless anymore. So it's
that's it. Sad. So are you going to close up the account? Or are you?
No, I keep it there. I never tweet. I never tweet.
Oh, okay.
I use it to reach out.
See, yeah, I can't say that.
Yeah, I use it to reach out to individuals that we're trying to get on the show. I've been able to connect with people because sometimes I can get around their PR people by tweeting directly at them. That is the only serviceable reason that I have Twitter all in my life. I run across interesting things and I'll try to follow the people. In fact, This is an interesting story, but this is a tangent here. I do follow, there's a guy that he was on Peter's show a couple of times, David K. Johnston. He's a New York reporter.
Yeah.
Solid reporting skills. Does lean a little left, but solid reporting skills. Wrote a book about Donald Trump, longtime Trump reporter and biographer type of person. He recently, just yesterday, tweeted out, and this is one of the times I was on the Twitter, was that he had just completed what he thought was the worst interview by a journalist in his entire life. And he goes through, I've been interviewed by hundreds of journalists, and I may just have gone through what is the worst conversation I've ever had with a person that is completely, I'll tell you, completely biased and ignorant. That's how he described this individual. Yeah. This individual has their own primetime TV show. Yes.
What?
Yes. His own primetime TV show, and appears on a secondary show every single day. And David K. Johnson, who is, again, he has the resume. He is a solid reporter. You can disagree with him politically.
And he said it was the worst interview. Why?
Worst interview he's ever had, because the interviewer was biased and ignorant on a level he hadn't encountered ever. And
it sounds like they didn't have a good contact. I mean, I'm going out on a limb here.
Yeah, well, the issue is Fox News' Jesse Waters.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
And he said it was embarrassing how bad Waters was, that he would routinely talk about things that were factually not true. And when David K. Johnson would provide him with the information showing, Jesse, you got it wrong, he didn't care. He would just go, I don't care, and keep asking the same dumbass question.
Say, I don't care.
Not necessarily.
He would sound like a postal
worker. He would just continue to ask regardless of the information that was provided to him. Because again, and it was David K. Johnston's impression is he didn't care. And again, described him as this is a guy who has done hundreds of interviews. And he descried him as the most biased and ignorant. And you wouldn't call him a
progressive or a lib or anything
he
like
does
that?
Lean left. He does. But again, the idea that his argument isn't Jesse Waters is this conservative freak and blah, blah, blah. His argument was he's unmoored from reality and talks about things that are factually incorrect.
Oh.
Facts don't have a liberal or conservative bias.
I hope he's on Twitter, because that's really what it is.
Yeah, he's on Twitter, yeah, but the issue is, and Johnson does leave and left, but if you go and you look at his actual reporting, his reporting is rock solid. He is an old school journalist. He is not an advocate journalist. He is an old school journalist. And what I appreciated about his tweet was he didn't go off on some sort of a liberal screed or talking about stupid conservatives. He was addressing facts. He said the facts that we had in our conversation, he didn't know, and was under the impression that things were true in this world that are provably false. And he said, that's an issue. And I don't care what your political bend is. That's an issue.
That's interesting.
It's a huge issue.
But, yeah, that's interesting. But
yeah.
He's not, if anyone thinks Jesse Waters is a news guy, you're making a huge mistake, right?
Yeah.
Like most of the dudes and dudettes on Fox and CNN, MSNBC, I think realize they're not really news people. The reporter people are. Yeah, there's something else.
Yeah, we've transitioned it. But David K. Johnston's thing, it was the idea that not only is he just not a journalist, not smart. That was the thrust of it.
That gives me hope.
Smart.
Though. Maybe we could end up on a show that pays us millions of dollars.
So you're saying I've got a chance.
If I had heard Jesse Waters, single smartest guy I'd ever come across, then I'd feel like I know it. No, there's no chance I end up with my own TV show now.
Yeah,
it's stupid.
Yeah.
The other good thing about Twitter, and I think it is underappreciated, is that it really allows people to expose who they are. You and I have talked about this before. The worst feature of Twitter is the ability to allow someone to be anonymous.
Yes. Yep.
That's the worst. If you had to own every vomitous, puke-filled thing you put on Twitter, it would change. Yes. Not for everybody, by the way.
No.
But there are some people who would be like, man, I don't want anyone to know that's what's in my head. So I've been more active on Twitter in the past, I don't know, couple days over this Tim Hernadez stuff, because I'm I am in like a couple months. I'm so fascinated by this, and it's kind of catching fire with a bunch of other people. Meanwhile, the response from the left and from the Dems who are just like, don't paint us with we need to call out Tim Hernadez. Yeah. He's our terrorist. Don't you dare. I mean, if it was Lauren Boebert, my God, she flipped somebody off at Beetlejuice, Billy. Yeah. She's got to go.
She does.
But terrorist Timmy Hernadez, First Amendment. And I'm like, someone tweeted in and they're like, oh, look, a former DA trying to restrict someone's First Amendment rights. And I'm like, first, please read the First Amendment. Second, come back and tell me how I'm trying to restrict them. I mean, and so
and the other part for me is that you're not trying to restrict them.
Not at
all. You're
all.
allowing Timmy to be as ignorant and dumb as he is allowed to be.
Yeah.
He can go out there and say as many stupid things as possible.
We want him to.
Yes. We just think it's fair to point them out and then ask questions, which, I don't know, maybe part of the First Amendment. It seems to be okay.
And maybe ask people from his party to come out and comment on it. So, former Speaker of the House, Terrence Carroll, a solid guy.
Oh, yeah, dude, he's solid,
Solid guy. Yeah. Well, someone that used to be on this station, but then talked themselves out of a job, who listens to the show routinely, can't help himself, has to listen to the show.
Yeah.
Tweets out something that I can't really see because I've muted this guy. Like, it's, you know what I mean? At some point, you turn down the white noise. You just don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
And so Terrence tweets out, I'm going to read it to you. I don't remember George being so vociferous in his condemnation of Christian nationalists, election deniers, or police brutality. I respond back to Terrence, hey, you obviously don't listen to the show.
Exactly. Good job. But, yes. But, you got to
and I put in the 710. Yes. Oh, I put it in.
And what time it is. Oh, yeah. Oh, I could give you a hug.
Then I said, but aside from your whataboutism here, do you agree with Tim Hernadez? Good. If not, have you decried it publicly?
Good.
Well, after that, sure enough, he does.
Yes.
And the tweet begins with, I'm disappointed.
Ah, yes. Congratulations. Yes, Mr. Carroll.
But that's it.
Yeah.
So it's the I'm disappointed. If I could find this thing right here. Oh gosh.
Again, it's a little clap, little golf clap there.
I'm going to read it
for it. That's fantastic.
I'm disappointed in the moral equivocation happening in Colorado politics circles right now, many of whom are my close friends. I believe we have sufficient moral capacity to condemn Hamas and decry the systemic abuses inflicted on the Palestinian people. And I write back, just disappointed? Like, geez, I wish you hadn't chosen the side of the evil, raping, kidnapping, terrorist murderers of the unsuspecting and defenseless.
Yeah.
Strong.
Yeah, that's strong.
I'm disappointed. I think at the end of the day, maybe this shows up in a column. You know who's been really good on this too is our buddy across the street, Ross.
Oh, good. Okay.
Ross has been really good. This is one of Ross's. To my fellow Jews in Colorado, I urge you not to cast your vote for any Democrat, even if you also don't vote for a Republican, until the disgusting Tim Hernadez is removed from the state legislature.
Hey.
Like, damn, man. Like, that's what you want to hear.
That's nice.
But here's the proof. Here is the proof that this is purely partisan. I want people to picture in their minds what the response of Polis and Weiser and Griswold and the Post and fill in the blank would be if you take out Tim Hernadez, terrorist Timmy Hernadez, and instead you put Dave Williams. If Dave Williams had been in the same place, in the same video, and gave that same bullying, condescending, smug punk answer that's on that now viral video, or maybe not Dave Williams. How about if it was Lauren Boebert, or if it was Richard Holtorf, or fill in the blank, any Republican? Picture them in the exact same place at the exact same time doing the same stuff as terrorist Timmy and all the other stuff that he's done so far. And you tell me if you think the Democrats would be just as silent with him. And if not, then this is purely partisan. This cowardice, this silence in the face of this garbage is purely political.
Yeah, it's absolutely political. It's because they don't want to throw rocks to their own side, and they don't understand that's how you get credibility. You gain credibility by not calling out the disgusting behaviors of your opponents, but calling out the disgusting behaviors of your allies. That's what gains you credibility. Being willing to look at both sides with open eyes and saying, this is messed up. And there are a lot of Democrats that are not covering themselves in valor, glory, and honor simply by looking at something that is disgusting and not decrying it. And one of the things that I would love to have Mr. Carroll on the radio, and I would love to ask him about would be the idea of separating Hamas and Palestine. And I understand that separating the Palestinian people.
He couldn't
from Hamas.
In his tweet.
Yeah, I understand that. And that's what a lot of people are having difficulty. We had the rally in Dearborn, Michigan that we highlighted yesterday, where thousands of people, over 1,000, it was like 1,600 people showed up to rally for Palestine. And they're saying, well, Palestine is different than Hamas. And you go, well, okay, much like, ISIS or Al-Qaeda is different than the ruling family in Saudi Arabia. However, it is very similar to what happened in Afghanistan, where you have a terrorist organization being part of a major political party. Hamas is part of a major political party in Palestine. They have ruling leadership in their decision makers, and they belong to a terrorist organization. That would be like us electing an ISIS member to our U.S. House. That's what it is. You can't necessarily separate the Palestinian people from Hamas because Hamas has rolled itself into the politics, and too many people are missing this. I have sympathy for the rank and file of the Palestinian people and what they've been through, but I have no sympathy because they have put the terrorists into political power. You have asked them to be your leaders. What do you think is going to happen? Did you not pay attention to Afghanistan?
I know.
Seriously, people. And this has gone on too long. And for my money and my money on the table, we have allowed Hamas to have a political role in Palestine for way too long.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't mean we have to go in there with violence, but there should have been another way with the carrot rather than the stick to get that away. It would have been difficult. But again, we can go through a laundry list of presidents and cabinets and foreign ministers that haven't had the spine or testicular fortitude to do what is tough in that situation.
There are exercises for that, by the way.
Yeah, there are. I'm going to have to do them during the break because I need to work on my yoga.
They're like Kegels.
Yeah, they are.
There's just some sort of...
I'm going to get off my soapbox. But again, I'm really mad that we don't separate the two. And
I know, but as we showed from the clips we played yesterday, the supporters of them don't separate them either.
Yeah, which to me is very important. Because then you go, hang on a sec.
Yeah.
If you as a supporter are not separating the actions of Hamas with Palestine, you don't understand the politics riled in there where they're all in bed together, then when you sit there and claim that you support Hamas or support Palestine, you are tangentially supporting Hamas because they are involved in the political leadership in that country. They help make the day-to-day decisions. And so if you're saying that you stand there and I support the Palestinian people, in a way, you are tangentially saying you are giving license to Hamas. We need to point that out because the people on the left are using this as a get-out-of-jail-free card. I care about the Palestinian people, but I hate Hamas. They're one and the same if you look at how the leadership is structured that country. And it's crap. And I wish someone that's has more voice and smarter than me to stand up and do it. I'm gonna go sit in the corner and
there is I want to hear a little bit too about the trivia thing last night because those were good stories. But there's another, just since we're on the Twitter thing, there's a post by some folks across the street here, but it's important because it's about Timmy. And it talks about this dude, I don't know who he is, some Twitter handle of Walrus or something like that.
Obviously a fine gentleman.
And he had, I don't know if he's the guy that took the video. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he had an off-camera conversation with Timmy Hernadez. And he posts this thing gets posted, the stream of it. And I hope I hope that there's a video of the off video thing, like someone else took it. But he said, this is a quote, "Once I turned off my camera, he asked me why I was there," which was the same question that I'd been asking him before.
Yeah.
But he asked me why I was there. And I said, I didn't need a particular reason to oppose their celebrating murder and rape and abduction of women and children and the elderly.
Nice.
But I also have lots of family over there that's in harm's way. And then he demanded several times to know their names. And this is a quote now. What are their names? Oh, what are their names? When are you going to tell me their names? Why aren't you going to tell me their names? Give me their names. I want to know their names. I obviously refused to answer. And then he got right up in my face. I mean, literally came nose to nose with me and told me, "You don't want to mess with me. Do you know what happens to people who mess with me? I'm a gangster."
I mean, you know what you do at that point? Okay, I'm sorry. I've been in several situations like that where someone is in your face. I mean, we're talking nose to nose.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, again, this takes, you gotta realize the crazy things that happen inside of my head. At that moment,
nobody can recognize what's going on in there. We can only enjoy it.
But the person yelling and you don't know who I am. You know what I am gonna. Yeah, that's when you lean in just a little bit and you give a little kiss.
Oh my God! I knew you were gonna go there.
Oh yeah.
Somehow I knew it was gonna go.
I just go in. No, but I go. Okay, sweetheart.
Oh.
And I tell you, that changes everything because you find out exactly how serious they are.
And then they kiss back, and then you're like, oh, that game of chicken didn't work out.
That didn't work out.
No.
Yeah. And but when they were kissed back and they use the tongue, it's awkward because it's in public, and you're like, do I know you well enough? And also, did I clean my teeth? Did I floss earlier? I don't know.
He's my favorite neighbor.
Yes, exactly. But that's the idea.
Man.
If he turns in and he does that, you just lean in, you go kiss, and okay, sweetheart. But again, and Hernandez there is pulling as we all recognize, a very, very juvenile power move of the tell me the names, as if the name would matter. What is Hernandez going to do? And guess what? What if they turn around and just say, well, it's Micheline? You have no idea. It doesn't matter. You can make up a name and say it's John Smith. You can name anything that you want. What's he going to do about it? What's he going to do?
But this is like schoolyard nonsense.
Yes, yes, it is middle school schoolyard nonsense.
Schoolyard nonsense from a guy who has embraced terrorism.
Yeah.
And is gonna serve within the next, I'm looking at my watch for dramatic effect, in 3 months, he will be taking his spot in our state legislature to offer laws and vote on others.
Yep. That's
what the Democrats have done to us. You guys nailed it. You guys are really good.
Yeah. That is the scary part about this. And that's why we'll continue to highlight Mr. Hernandez, because not just the fact that he's being a complete a-hole and he's obviously a little emotionally immature, but more importantly, they're handing him the keys in order to help make laws, rules, and regulations that impact your life and impact my life. That's not okay. I'm sorry. Stop putting the stupid people in charge. It doesn't do good things. Can we stop? Can we just agree on this one? So that's why we are going to highlight his mistakes, his overstepping boundaries, his just absolute foolery, because he gets to make some of the rules. And this is ridiculous. The Democrats bring him under the wing and go, yeah, this is obviously okay. No. You know why he's there, though? Because one, he'll be an agitator. Two, he'll be a reliable vote. What's he going to do? He's not going to vote for anything.
I don't know if he'll be a reliable vote. In some ways, it's like rolling a grenade under the leadership's tent.
Well,
because
here's the reason why. Because he's so liberal. What they're going to do is they're going to turn to him and go, what you going to do about it? Yeah. You're going to go and not vote for this, and you're going to be counted with the Republicans?
No, but
you're going to be the people that will oppose this?
He'll steer up the people
go right ahead.
Jobless and willing to go picket something.
Yeah.
Just because.
Yep. But then again, that's what the Dems want him for. He's supposed to be that agitator.
But he'll agitate
at the end of the day,
them.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he's going to have to go along. He's going to have to, because he has no other choice. So they know that he is. I will reference a phrase that is used on our wall over there when people tweet in and text in that he is their useful idiot. That's what he is for them.
He is. Someone else tweeted this out either last night or this morning, and I thought, you know what? It's true. And they're like, this guy is going to be the face of the Colorado Democratic Party until he's gone. And I want that to be true, because
the GOP should really, really work on making that happen. They really should work on that. Just like the Dems focus on Gates and Marjorie Taylor Greene. They focus on them because
of Lauren.
Yep. They focus on them because of outsized social media presence and the things they say. So they are painting them as the leaders of the party. And it is strategically very advantageous. Colorado GOP should be making a note and a list. And Hernandez should be one of the top people, especially because he will be like Tay Anderson. He will want to have a lot of that social media engagement. So he will talk a lot. He will try to get his message out a lot. He will agitate a lot. So focus on him. Focus on him being the messenger. It could really make some hay with this.
Imagine how much fear these extremist wingnut bomb throwers strike in the hearts of those who are in power now for people that would otherwise. I mean, I'm telling you, Polis, Griswold, and Weiser would have a joint press conference to decry Dave Williams on the steps of the Capitol with Palestinian Hamas flag-waving supporters.
They'd have pictures, huge pictures behind them.
Oh, buddy. It
PowerPoint presentations.
And we would hear this is the face of the Republican Party. They would make this a campaign issue for the next couple years.
Look at this group of kindergartners who Dave Williams made cry. They're right here on the steps. That's exactly what they'd be doing.
They'd have pictures of Dave next to one of the flags there, standing next to like pictures of dead grandmas and stuff.
Yes, I mean, exactly. And they'd have someone stand up there.
But they say
I don't know
nothing.
For sure, but someone told me that Dave Williams kicked their puppy.
But they say and do nothing.
Yeah.
And they send out the Terrence Carrolls or whoever. And I say they send it out. Terrence is his own man. But
he is.
But these people try to ride to their rescue by either maligning you like, whoa, and George put people in jail for nothing. And I'm like, okay, happy to engage you. Please provide the proof. And then, of course, they run away to their anonymity.
And again, that's a distraction technique.
Oh, yeah,
because if you're saying, hey, I'm not going to deal with the issue you brought up, I want you to deal with this issue. It's a distraction. Yeah, at this point of game.
They never do. One guy, and I wish I could remember his name, some dude who is a photographer, or at least that's what, can you believe anything you get off of your Twitter stuff anymore?
No.
But some photographer guy, and he's got a good number of followers, 35,000 or so. He took a shot at me when I had said, let's see here. When I had said that the scariest thing of all is Tim Hernadez had been a taxpayer-funded teacher of children.
Oh, yeah.
I said the only more dangerous place that hate-filled Hamas-loving guy could be is the legislature. Dems, you nailed it. So this guy chimes in.
Ooh, yeah.
And says, George used to be a taxpayer-funded district attorney, and his hate-filled extremist stuff, blah, blah, blah. I wish he would see that, LOL. And so I responded, and I said, hey, man, I'm glad you're one of the few people that respond to me. Thank you so very much. And I said, but where do you stand on this? And I thought, let me just take a look around his particular
you missed the opportunity, though.
What was it? What did I screw up now? Dang it.
He's a photographer. So you need to ask him, let's bring this conversation into focus.
Oh,
there's so many double entendres there that you could throw in there. There are, that maybe you and I aren't seeing things through the same lens.
Oh, maybe. Dang, you did it.
Yeah, there's so many things that we could do. But what do you say? What's his profile?
So I go and I check it out.
That's always important. Always do that, because if someone's tweeting back at you or someone responding to you on social, understand where they sit.
That's
exactly
where they stand.
Right. Yeah.
And I go and I hit this guy's Twitter feed, and this dude is all Palestine, Hamas all the time. I mean, every other tweet is, did you know that Israel has killed a Palestinian once every so many days? And I'm like, wait, that's what you come to town with after they've been massacred? Like, oh, this dude's an apologist for Hamas. I imagine he and Timmy are buddies in some way. You know what I mean?
Or at least he expresses the same emotions, that he feels that Tim is giving his voice.
It's a guy named Tyler Atwood, and he has a Twitter handle that is at Tyler Atwood with a little underscore. And man, you scroll through this thing and it is all anti-Israel, pro-Palestine, Hamas stuff. And you figure, thank you, Twitter, because we would not know who this guy was. I mean, for people that work with him, lunch with him, live next to him, use his business, they now get a chance to go, oh, this is who you are. This is who you pick in this. Thank you, Tyler Atwood. Thank you for showing us who you are. And he gets the chance to explain to them, wait, I support Hamas because I love the idea. Actually, Twitter, as horrible and toxic as it is, it's revealing.
Yeah, it is. And that is the advantage. And again, it's revealing only because he used his real name, which goes back to your original point.
Yeah, which I love.
That's the problem.
I love. That's very helpful.
It would be incredibly difficult to make it work, but that would be the advantage, is to take away all the pseudonyms on Twitter. But however, rather than Elon Musk working towards that, what did he do? He turned around and he goes, hey,
we'll verify
those verification checks, we're going to make sure they're worthless. We're going to make sure they don't mean anything anymore. The one little thing that we had done right on the site to make sure you knew who was speaking, forget that. That's just annoying.
They should have had a separate track. They should have had you're willing to stand behind the words you say, Twitter/X. And the I'm too scared to say it on that platform, Twitter next. Some people have chimed in and they're like, George, you don't understand. Many of us have been targeted by unscrupulous right-wing prosecutors, and we have to remain anonymous. And I'm like, oh, please share. Who?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's the hallmark of the gutless anonymous coward that they sling all these accusations. And I'm sure it happens on the right too. And then they just slink away. Or they shift gears or something.
Now, I understand the idea inside of journalism using an anonymous source. I understand that, but there's some triangulation.
But they're known to them.
They are, and there's also a thing in journalism called triangulation. You never have an anonymous source that walks up and tells you something that you don't try to verify. If you cannot get at least 2 other verifications of that story, you don't publish. That's what the rules should be. They don't exist anymore. We don't care about that anymore. but that's part of what we look at here is when people tell me, well, I have to be on Twitter because the people come at me and I got to be anonymous, etc. I look at that and say, maybe we need to, one, look at who you're engaging with. Two, what is the messaging? Because at the core, if the person that is awful, prosecutors that are coming in and going to persecute you for what you're saying, what are you saying? Because if what you're saying is factually based, go right ahead. It's just like, as we saw, and I hate to bring this back, the Dominion lawsuit with Fox News.
Yeah.
And everybody on this radio station, other radio stations, all about the stolen election. Odd when Fox had the chance to walk into the courtroom and present all the receipts showing the election was stolen, because that was the narrative. That
would have been a great defense, by the way.
It would have been the perfect defense. That is the absolute defense in a defamation case, is the truth. And Fox never once, not in a single filing,
have ever alleged,
never said they were telling the truth. Same thing. Same thing.
That does get me to the one other thing. The other thing that happens on here are the people like the guy that used to be on the microphone here that will sling the garbage about pro-Trump radio or you're a Trump sycophant. And I'm like, do you listen to this show?
Yeah, do you even
Please,
know?
do you listen to the show? I mean, there's nothing like that here, but I get it. It's the narrative.
Yeah, it is. And again, if they sit there and they can give you a jacket, they can ignore what you say. If they can say, well, you're pro-Trump this, you're anti-Trump this. It's just like when the people on the text message machine disagree with what you say and they say, oh, well, you're a rhino. That is an excuse.
Right, exactly.
They can't,
I've labeled you over.
Yeah, exactly. They can't intellectually engage with what you are saying. So if I just call you a name, then I don't have to deal with it. That gives me intellectual permission to discount everything you said, because now I've called you a name. I'm not going to deal with the hard gray matter work of actually going through the thoughts and the facts and making a case. I'm just going to call a name, and then I don't have to deal with you, and I win. That's
I think we should invite terrorist Timmy on the radio.
Sure.
Let's just do it and see. Maybe he'll give the same response that Phil Weiser always gives, which is when the Rockies win the World Series or something like that. One last thing on this is that the guy that used to be on the show here, this is just classic him. This is just classic him. I sent out this tweet that called out terror-loving Timmy. And I said, hey, do you condemn Hamas for this act of pure evil? Of course, crickets, man. I'm sure the instructions he's been given is, as a gangster, you should lay low and not respond to those who call you out. Tough guy. And then I said, or Governor of Colorado, Jenna, Phil, will you finally find the guts and voices to condemn a Hamas supporter who your party installed in our legislature? All factual, all fair. Hate-filled guy here that used to be on the radio responds with, George Brauchler reflexively attacks Jewish elected leaders of Colorado. Oh, that's right. I'm the anti-Semite. Nailed it, dude. You are smart. Yes, I'm the anti-Semite for asking the 3 of 4 statewide elected leaders who are Jewish to come out and denounce a guy who has taken sides in celebrating against Israel. Yes! Exposed. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that makes Twitter both fun, frustrating. Honestly, it would be like if Twitter went away tomorrow, like someone could flip a switch. Do you remember the Simpsons episode years ago where like the cable went out and everybody lost TV? And all of a sudden they went outside and they were swinging on swings and playing with each other, and there were happiness and couples were hugging each other and everything was great. And then the TV came back on and they all ran back into their homes, and that's exactly what would happen if you flip the switch on Twitter. Here's some text. Someone's going to try to hook us up with Terrence. Love to have him on. Love to hear his explanations. Alexa, let's not forget Timmy was a teacher. That is scary. True. He did not get his contract renewed for a lot of reasons. Oh, dude, we've just run up on our wall here. I think we may have punched through it. Sorry. We can do more of this later. There's a lot more to talk about today. In fact, we have guests that we're going to have later in the show. Pretty excited to have them on, 2 of them. But let's break away for now. We'll come back. We'll do the Thorpe Report, and then we'll hit the You Choose the News. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. It's time for it. Thorpe Report. Well,
yes, sir. Don't run away from this one. We have a winter weather advisory that's in effect for parts of Colorado as we are preparing for our first big snow of the season. Mostly going to be in the mountains. We've got a National Weather Service winter advisory that's in effect through 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. High wind watch as well. In Denver, cold front has dropped our highs from the 70s on Wednesday to 50s for today and tomorrow. Mostly cloudy, cooler today, tomorrow. Clear skies Friday night and Saturday morning. And then some Denver locations could see the first below freezing temperatures of the season over our weekend. 3 people have now been arrested in connection with the deadly shooting of a 49-year-old Aurora man who chased off a scooter thieves back in August. Police in Aurora announced yesterday 2 additional suspects were arrested in that drive-by shooting. 18-year-old Ahmed Mohammed of Aurora and a 15-year-old boy were arrested on charges of first-degree murder. A 16-year-old was arrested on the same charges last week. This is the one in which they were trying to steal scooters, and the guy and his kids came outside and chased them away, and they came back later and shot into his house, killing the guy.
Man.
Yeah, so that's what it is.
Because he dared to chase after them when they were stealing his stuff?
Yeah, he dared.
Doesn't
he dared
know
try to
better?
stop them. Yes, he dared to try to stop them from taking his stuff.
Was it Tim Hernadez?
I know it wasn't,
Oh.
but I think they know him. The Jefferson County Sheriff, I'm going to get in so much trouble. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office is investigating after body parts were stolen from the Crown Hill Cemetery. That's at 7777 West 29th Avenue. They discovered it right around 7 o'clock in the morning yesterday. Reports of a damaged mausoleum. The crypt from the private mausoleum was severely damaged, according to the Sheriff's Office, and somebody overnight broke in and decided to take body parts out of the casket. It's not super creepy that we're coming on Halloween or nothing anyway, so I'm just saying watch out for mummies. Broomfield, you never know. Broomfield authorities are conducting a death investigation at a home in the Brandywine neighborhood. This happened yesterday afternoon, right around 3:30. There was a large police presence on Cambridge Avenue near the intersection of Midway Boulevard and Perry Street. Later in the hour, they updated that it is now a death investigation. Details are still outstanding. Don't know what's going on. The Turin Bike Shop building at 7th and Lincoln, just outside Denver's Capitol Hill neighborhood, caught fire yesterday afternoon. Fire and smoke tore through the rooftop of the vacant building. It was reported right around 4 o'clock and quickly extinguished. Cause of the fire, unknown. The fact it was abandoned and we got lots of homeless downtown, who knows? Plans to consolidate a number of schools within the Poudre School District are being put on hold after a board meeting last night drew in hundreds of concerned community members, mostly because of if you consolidate the schools, it's a rural district. How do you get people to and from getting to the schools and travel, stuff like that? And this is kind of sad news for all Broncos fans. Broncos superfan Kerry Green, who's known as the Mile High Monster, has passed away. Very sad. He's the guy for the past 16 years has been dressing up like that giant orange pom-pom.
What happened to that guy?
He passed away.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he and his son are the Mile High Monsters. He's the older of the two. They've had a season ticket since 1965. And recently on social media, just in the last 24 hours, they posted that he has passed away. And that is very sad. He is going to be missed. And we salute you, sir.
I saw that Kelly Worthman from the big news.
Yeah.
On TV had posted something with that. I didn't read the thing. I didn't realize he'd passed away. I thought it was just like, hey, Broncos.
Hey, look, Broncos. Yeah, we suck. Yeah,
oh, bummer.
That's all I got.
That's fantastic. Look, let's cut away for a break. Try to rush right back here to get to the good stuff. That's You Choose the News. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. It's time for You Choose the News. Billy!
Yes, sir. It is that time of the morning where we play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. We have scoured the interwebs for mere moments this morning because I get distracted easily. We've given these weird stories, fake headlines to play this fake radio news game because for some reason they are paying us for it. In fact, we even did the sponsor yesterday, and it was good. I got to go to, no, I can't mention the restaurant, but let's call it Paco Del. And so it was delicious. But I still am a little agitated there. Okay. Now, alrighty, sir. Here are our stories this morning. Headline number 1, Ultimate American Destination Wedding. Headline number 2, In the Nick of Time. Headline number 3, Does this count as cannibalism? And headline number 4, Dogs Ride Free. Alrighty, your stories yet again are Ultimate American Destination Wedding, In the Nick of Time, Does this count as cannibalism? And Dogs Ride Free.
Does this count as cannibalism?
Yeah, does this count as cannibalism? That's what Jay and Karen de Grossbrind say, and they own Tipton Gas Bar in Vancouver Island. And they're weird. They want to know if this is a case of cannibalism. They say recently, right around 6:30 in the morning, they had a visitor there at the store that came in and took a 70-cent pack of gummy bears and then ran away without paying. Normally, that would be shoplifting, but not when it's a bear. Yes, a bear walked into the Tipton Gas Bar in Vancouver Island, stole a package of gummy bears, and ran out into the parking lot to then eat them. They captured on surveillance camera. They say, obviously, the bear knows what these are and has a sweet tooth, but I'm wondering, is it cannibalism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, next choice. Ultimate American Destination Wedding, Nick of Time, or Dogs Ride Free?
Destination Wedding?
It is the Ultimate Destination Wedding. Congratulations to Mike and Kathy Haller. They're a newly married couple from Munich, Germany. They traveled all the way here to the beautiful United States of America to have their Ultimate American Destination Wedding. Where, oh, where would they hold this wedding? What would be the most American destination? None other than the Golden Arches. Yes, they had their wedding here in America at a Michigan McDonald's.
Oh,
yep. They showed up. Yes,
best.
They showed
Michigan
up
McDonald's.
in a Mickey D's branded Ford Mustang. They celebrated their love by sharing a cheeseburger and fries. They said that when they came in, they toured America and were tourists a little while ago. McDonald's was one of their wonderful memories. Now, when they go into McDonald's all over the world, they're now going to have a memory of their wedding. So they said this was the ultimate American wedding. And it's weird when they say the ultimate American thing and they pick McDonald's.
Yeah,
what does that say about us?
That's interesting.
All righty, final choice.
American, but you know.
Exactly. The cool thing is in one of the wedding photos, they're there with a Grimace. They got the guy in the Grimace costume. I love
the Hamburglar.
No, I love me some Grimace. Alrighty, now final choice. In the Nick of Time or Dogs Ride Free?
Dogs Ride Free.
Yes, Dogs Ride Free. We're going to Washington, D.C. for this one, and we're meeting a 19-year-old, Dax Franco Willis of Northeast D.C. He wanted to know, can my dog ride for free? Recently, about 7:30 in the morning, he was contacting a ride share. Car pulls up, and he goes, hi, it's just me and my dog. And the person driving the car says, no, sorry, no dogs. And he goes, I disagree. And the person says, no, my car. And so Mr. Drax said, well, that's a beating. Promptly beat up the person in the rideshare car, dragged them out of the car, and then drove away with his pup in the passenger seat. So yes,
what?
He decided that since the Uber said no dogs in the car, he would just beat up the Uber driver and then take the car. Because that's the obvious solution. That is the obvious thing that we're missing here.
That's it.
Who would not do the same thing in that same situation?
That feels like a gangster move. That sounds like a terror-loving Timmy move.
I know.
Right was exactly it Tim? Was it Timmy Hernadez?
No, his name was Dax. But maybe it's Tim's alter ego. It could be.
That could very well be.
It could be. Maybe that's his alter ego when Timmy's on. No, I can't say
Although
that.
in his world, dogs are for kicking.
I can't top that one. It's all yours.
Buddy, thank you so much. That was the You Choose the News. Listen, we've got guests today in the 8 and the 9, but the 7, it's all just us. It's you and me. I'm telling you, I want to have the conversation with you. Get the phones ready at 303-696-1971, but I'm not really sure where we're going to go when we come back. Find out. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler with you here in the 7 o'clock hour. That means we've only got the 3 hours left for you and I to chat it up. 303-696-1971, the number. I'll get to the topic in just a moment. Want to let you know that Chuck Kirk takes over at 10, Prager 11, Gorka 1, and then live and local right back here with Deb Flora from 3 to 4. And then in the Swan Song, he is in the final several months, of his farewell tour. His name is Stephen Tubbs. We got to get Stephen in the studio, man. I know that we had talked about this, I think at the Prager thing or something, but we got to get him in the studio to interview him. He apparently interviewed Governor Jared Tim Hernadez Polis. I'm wondering how that thing went. I got to go back and listen to the podcast. It's just one of those things where I get to dip in and out of radio based on my time in the car. And so I get to hear Stephen from time to time. And I missed the whole Jared Polis thing yesterday. So if it happened, we need to go back into the pods. If you haven't listened to it, you need to go back into the podcast and take a listen to it. We are going to try, with information I have been provided, to try to get a hold of Terrence Carroll and see if he'll come on and discuss sort of the milquetoast at best response by those who had the guts to say anything about terror-loving Timmy Hernadez. But this gets us to another question here. And there are a bunch of stories out there. If you needed another example, though, about how education is doomed and dying, especially higher education, you only need to look at collegiate response to this unmitigated evil attack on the unsuspecting and defenseless Israelis, because there are Harvard groups out there who issued a letter that blames Israel for their victims, blames the victims. They've come out and do that. But then you think to yourself, of course, it's Harvard. That doesn't shock me. But then it turns out Harvard University President Claudine Gaye came out with a statement condemning Hamas. She did not rebuke the students, but she at least condemned Hamas and came out and said, this is outright terrorism, and terrorism is never justified. That's from a congressman, also from Massachusetts, all responding to this garbage where these Harvard students and these student groups were going to come out. They did come out in a letter and support Hamas. They wanted to have a vigil in support of Hamas. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. This is the Harvard president, though, having to come out and say this. As the events of recent days continue to reverberate, let there be no doubt that I condemn the terrorist atrocities perpetrated by Hamas. Such inhumanity is abhorrent, whatever one's individual views of the origins of long-standing conflicts of the region. Let me also state on this matter, as on others, that while our students have the right to speak for themselves, no student group, not even 30 student groups, that's a direct reference, speaks for Harvard University or its leadership. That's how appalling this is. That's college students, by the way. So when you start thinking about Biden converting our tax money into a gift for these people that have this college debt, hard stop. No, thank you. These are the clowns we're subsidizing with our taxpayer dollars. There's more than that. There's another article out there that talks about CEOs now of businesses. And this is the question I want to have. Let me go to Tufts first, and then we'll get to that part. Tufts students came out and they praised the creativity of Hamas in the way that they attacked the colonizers, which I presume to be the Israelis that they're talking about. It's called Tough Students for Justice in Palestine. They called the Hamas terrorists liberation fighters paragliding into occupied territory. Yep, Tufts, not just Harvard, Columbia, NYU, by the way, do you know who's a graduate of NYU? Any guesses, Billy? Silent Phil. Silent Phil,
really?
Who has said nothing about terrorist Timmy and his love for the people that slaughtered the defenseless Israelis that I think Phil and Jared and Jenna all, at least politically and publicly, claim some affiliation with. Mum's the word, but NYU. How about come out against the NYU students, Phil? They're your grads. Honest to God, man. If CU did, I would I have trash talked CU before. I mean, it's this idea that we can't take on the people with whom we disagree because they offer us some future political benefit or they're our buddies. That's not principled. That's just gutlessness. That's just cowardice. So here's what we've got. It's a New York Post story. It's called A Dozen CEOs Back Bill Ackman's Call to Not Hire Harvard Students Who Blamed Israel for the Hamas Attack. Now think about that for a moment. This is where the Twitter piece is good. This is where Twitter helps, and social media in general, especially if the person lets themselves be known. These are people who, because of the algorithm in Twitter, usually just get to swim around with the same broken voices that they always do. So they think that's the real universe. They out themselves by cheering out. I mean, here's good God, man, a picture of these Harvard students who would love for you and I to pick up the tab for their educations if mom and dad don't. Get Harvard out of occupied Palestine, Jesus. So this CEO comes out, Bill Ackman's one of them, comes out and says, yeah, I'm not going to hire anybody from Harvard who I go back and check and find out that they came out in support of Hamas. Isn't that interesting? The question I have for you is, would you do the same? As a result of this, would you go out and look and see, and if you found a person that supported a terrorist organization like Hamas, would you then refuse to hire them? I'd want to go one step farther. If you're not the government, because when the government acts, and only when the government acts is it a First Amendment violation. You and I can't violate someone's First Amendment rights. And no matter how many dingbats right or left on social media try to suggest that when you shout someone down, it's a violation of their First Amendment rights, they are wrong. So in a non-government employment setting, if you are a private employer, especially in an at-will environment, would you fire someone who you knew took up arms against Israel or supported a terrorist organization like Hamas? Would you do it? I suppose the next question would have to be, if we do it for this, if it's okay to do it for this, where else is it okay to do it for? I mean, I see this totally differently, by the way, from if you sat down with an applicant and you tried to interview them. And during the interview, you said, hey, I've got to know what's your position on this whole Israel-Hamas thing. That's different, man. You can't be digging around in somebody's privately held beliefs or interests in that area, unless maybe your job is, I guess I take that back. If you're with AIPAC, you should probably know whether or not the people that are applying are actually Hamas supporters. So I feel differently about that. But I'm saying in a regular commercial retail sort of context, I don't think you ought to be asking people what their privately held political beliefs are. But to the extent that they expose them publicly and link them to something that you can identify them from, it feels to me like it's fair game. Now, I'm sure there's some laws out there on this, but in this particular situation, you don't have a right to be hired. And so these CEOs, and I respect the hell out of this, have said, we're going to go back and look. Now, Billy's question off the air, and I thought that was a good one too, is, look, could a CEO then go back, look at social media and say, oh, this dude's a Trumper. I'm not going to hire a Trumper. I think that's a fair question to ask. Should you be able to do it? This one's an easy one for me, and that is, if you support Hamas, a terrorist organization, yes, I don't want you working for me. And this isn't like, well, how American is that? Because this isn't differing views like who's better, Broncos or Raiders. Right? This isn't differing views like, do you support universal health care or the current broken system or anything? It's not like that at all. This is, do you support the slaughter, rape, kidnap of the defenseless? I mean, there's no debate here. This would be like saying, I have someone that I've employed who actually is a Holocaust denier. They just disagree. And I felt like I don't see it their way. I'm disappointed they see it that way, but I don't feel like it's my position to hold their beliefs against them in the employment setting. That's utter garbage. You wouldn't hire that person, and I can't imagine the law would ever make you. So in this circumstance, would you refuse to hire someone? Or would you consider terminating someone who publicly took a position in this setting, this event, in support of the terrorist, bloodthirsty, rapist, kidnapping, murderous Hamas? Here's my quick follow-up as we go to the phone lines at 303-696-1971. And that is, if you would fire them from your job, if you would not hire them for your job, what do we do with an appointed legislator who has done the same? What do we do with that guy? I don't know the answer, but it can't be a good one. Let's go right to the phone lines here. Neil, you're on 710 KNUS. Neil, what do you think?
Well, first, I just got to say that when they bring up the First Amendment aspect of these people's rights to say what they want to say, that's fine. But when you're supporting a group like Hamas that did what they did over the weekend with their murder and rape and all of that garbage, that to me, that's similar to trying to justify screaming fire in a crowded movie theater, that kind of a First Amendment protection, because that's basically a disastrous way to go. So
it is. What do you do with this? Do you have a business, Neil, or
no? I'm a freelancer.
Okay. Would you, if you were in a position to hire or fire, would this be the kind of thing you would want to know about? And maybe this is the good part of Twitter, is you're now able to find out what's beaten in the chest of the people I'm about to bring into my work.
Yeah, well, like you said, I don't think that's something you can ask at the actual hiring. But when you're an employee, once you're an employee or about to be an employee of a corporation or a company, if you find out something of that nature and it really supports a murderous terrorist organization, I think you have every right to let them go, because it's an extreme to say, but this whole thing of sleeper cells, if you're willing to justify what went on over there in Israel, what's to say you wouldn't try to justify that activity here in your own country?
I agree.
Maybe
I agree.
That's an extreme way, but.
And how about this too? Under the caption that the lefties love, safe spaces. How could you have on your staff someone who is obviously Jewish? And when I say obviously, I mean they wear the yarmulke, they're observant, they let everybody know, they have they celebrate Hanukkah, whatever it is. How could you have that person in the same workplace as somebody like a terrorist Tim Hernadez, who dances around and celebrates in the hours after Israelis were slaughtered? I mean, how could they feel safe?
True. And, you're by keeping somebody like that on, you could be putting the Jewish employee in harm's way. Plus, you don't know if they get responsive to what happened. Let me try that again. If they get responsive to what that person stands for, you don't know that the Jewish person might not feel threatened and take steps to protect themselves, even in a way that is disconcerting to everyone.
I agree with you. Neil, hey, thanks for the phone call. Thanks for getting us started off. Phone lines are full, except for Neil's now, 303-696-1971. Thank you, Neil. Brian, you're on 710 KNUS. Brian, what do you think?
Hey, George, these, of course, it's fair game. The left's been doing this for a long time. Not to say that the right should be doing it back, but they've been looking at who you support, social media sites. And so I think it's fair game, especially if you're going to be emboldened to support something like that and be publicly advocating for such atrocities. So yeah, I think it's fair game. A CEO has a responsibility to set the culture of their company. So if there's terrorist supporters, or sympathizers, yeah, why would you want that person to be in the culture? That if you're not trying to set that culture, then you don't want those people in that organization. So I think it's totally fair game. The sad part is right now we're I mean, we're watching the left come out and join protests. Democrats come out and protest the unspeakable. So, I mean, this is crazy times we're living in, that the left is out there. A lot of them are out, and nobody's condemning these people. I haven't heard anything condemning Tim Hernadez. Have you heard anyone Democrat?
Yes,
announcing
one,
him?
and it's Daphne Janae Michelson. She's a state senator, but she's also Jewish, and she is one that I know of elected members of the legislature or state government who are Jewish, who came out and blasted Hernandez. But she is all alone. Everybody else has kind of Terrence Carrolled their way through this. Like, I'm disappointed, or what's his name? David Ortiz. I disagree with. I mean, I disagree. I'm disappointed. I mean, this is just crazy. What do you think would happen? And I think you know the question, Brian. It's not entirely rhetorical, but what do you think the response would be if Donald Trump showed up at a Palestinian flag waving rally in the hours after Israelis were slaughtered? What would the media be like today? Or hell, just Dave Williams, a local guy, or Lauren Boebert. What would the coverage and the response be from the Polis, Weiser, Griswold clan? What do you think that would be? I mean, this group of people cling to their Jewish faith for good reasons. They're public about it too, and I'm very supportive of that. But all of a sudden, they go mum's the word when someone who wears their jersey comes out and takes up arms against Israelis. It's shocking.
It is. And Trump was, his son-in-law is Jewish. And so, but he would have been painted as a Nazi. He was painted as a white supremacist, even though he isn't. And even though, he was painted as that. And then here we have Tim Hernadez flat out telling you what he feels, and no one's condemning that. So it's unbelievable how the left is silent on this. Where's Jared Polis? Where's anyone? Where's Michael Bennett? Where's Hickenlooper? None of them. They're silent, and their silence speaks volumes. And we knew they weren't going to come out because the left never comes out against their own. It's only the right that does that.
You are absolutely right, Brian. Let me just follow up with this one part, though. I agree with what you said about, hey, if you're in an employment situation, you have an obligation to this. That follow-on question that I thought was a good one from Billy was, does that extend to an employer who says, hey, man, I checked your social media stuff, or maybe he doesn't say that to him, but he checks their social media stuff and says, oh, good Lord, this is a Donald Trump supporter. This is a Trumper. I'm not bringing one of them on board. That would be totally contrary to the chemistry that we have. And I mean, would that be okay?
I think political, again, free country, political disagreements are one thing. Murder, rape, and parading dead bodies, that is terrorism. That's an entirely different thing. And so, yeah, political parties, I might have a problem with that, but affiliations or associations, but terrorist organizations supporting people that support them, there's definitely, you can draw a line there, George. We all can draw a line, except for the Dems. They can't draw a line against their own.
No, they can't. Brian, thank you so very much. Brian's line is open, 303-696-1971. Joan, I see you. Other line lighting up. I see you. There's one that's open. You ought to jump on it, especially if you are texting in now, and I love it. We've got a ton of texts. I'll get through those too. Whether it's supportive, contradictory, combative, have the guts to just call in and have the conversation. 303-696-1971. And I'm looking at Kevin the Liar too. You feel free to have you got a phone, man, use it. Come on the air here and let's have the conversation. Or continue to be the gutless coward that you are. Nonetheless, I got to tell you about our good friends at UltraCur. And I say that, and if you're on the YouTube or the Rumble, you can see that I'm holding up the little free packages right now. I don't get a chance to normally talk about them in the early 7 o'clock hour. That's why I wanted to do it here. As you know, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I am close to, good gravy, 2 weeks from trying to crawl my way 26.2 miles in the swamp for the Marine Corps Marathon. If I'm not back on that Monday, it's because I didn't make it. Maybe we do some sort of a call-in from the hospital that they've whisked me to, Walter Reed, to the extent it will serve me. But the pain that I feel when I run, and it's every single time, is mitigated. I'm telling you, the recovery time is much more it's much quicker when I take the UltraCur. You should try this out. Now, the good guys at UltraCur have done some studies that show that about 50% of the people that take it experience relief within 48 hours. Half of them experience within 2 hours. Now, all you have to do to see if you're part of that group, or maybe you're the group that has to go to beyond 48 hours to 72 hours or 90, get the free sample. Go to the natural grocers near your house. You're not going to find it just walking around the natural grocers. Have to go to the vitamin manager. They're looking forward to seeing you. You say, I'm here for my free UltraCur sample. They'll even give you an extra 3-day supply so that you can give it to a buddy or anyone that you care about. Have them give it a test too. And then you're going to get hooked. Not because it's addictive in that fentanyl kind of way, because it's addictive in terms of, man, I like the fact that I don't feel the same pain. I'm feeling better. The anti-inflammatory, the antioxidant stuff, it's undeniable. Check it out. You can also find out more about them going online. When you go to the grocer, I forgot to tell you, if you can't find the vitamin manager, ask any of the checkout people to point you in the direction. And I say that because the vitamin manager, I don't know, maybe they're moving around the store, maybe they're on a break, maybe there's something, but do not be deterred. You have the ability to get this. It'll work for you. Go give it a shot. You can also check them out at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. We're going to cut away for a break. Check out some of the texts. We'll get to your phone calls as well at 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Kevin the Traitor, liar, not willing to call in, having a great back and forth text show with a guy who pretends like he's done stuff on behalf of the country, but refuses to actually identify how or in what capacity. But he really is a patriot. Believe me, folks, he is a patriot. Listen, we're talking about this effort by some CEOs. It's gotten some publicity to refuse to hire those who have come out publicly and taken a position in support of Hamas, like terrorist Tim Hernadez did. And I asked the question, would you do that? Would you also let someone go from your employment who did that? We've had some good texts coming back and forth other than Kevin the Traitor's, and we've got phone calls too. Your line is open, 303-696-1971. Joan, you're on 710 KNUS. Joan, what do you think?
Good morning, George. I think that you should listen to Stephen Tubbs' interview with Polis, because Polis came out and semi-denied he even knew Hernandez. He said,
Sure.
I haven't met him, and he doesn't go into the legislature until November. It was slimy, really slimy.
So what did he say?
But-
Now tell me what he said on Stephen's show.
He said that he really didn't know Hernandez, and that Hernandez really doesn't start in the legislature until in November. And he just denied that, Hernandez was anybody he associated with.
So wait a minute. First off, unless this guy doesn't review any social media or there have been stories. It's not me driving this. You just hop on Twitter or any other social media. This guy's garbage is everywhere. It's gone viral. And maybe this gets me back to the thing. We need to have a change.org petition going so that Polis actually knows what's going on in the state. But there's a guy in his party appointed by his peeps in Denver to go to the legislature that's done this. This can't be a matter of first impression. I've tagged the governor's office and Phil's and Jenna's, I don't know, 10, 20 times in posts, alerting them to the video, alerting them to the this and that. So to say I had really no idea is a function of either, it's not true, or it's just straight up a lack of caring. But now that Stephen turned him on to it, what was his response?
You really need to go and listen to it yourself. I originally called because I wanted to say, well, this is a little bit like what's happening with the speaker. There are like a majority of Republicans that are out there and they want to support Scalise, but they're out there saying, oh, there's just a few.
Joan, hang on. We'll get to the Scalise thing. But you came in and characterized what he said. And then when I asked you how he responded, you said you should go back and listen to it. What did he say?
I think Stephen Tubbs, when he does his interviews with Polis, kind of lets things slide. He didn't push back on it.
Oh, well, this wasn't so much about Stephen. I just want to know if the governor had a response. If he didn't, then that's fine. We'll continue to ping him on the social media stuff. But you were likening this to the House Speaker vacancy and the fight over that. Tell me about that.
Well, I can tell you that my husband recently retired. And before he retired, he kept his politics very much to himself, because to be working in federal government and being a Republican is a very, very scary thing. So I think that with Scalise, there are people that are wanting to stand up and wanting to say no, but because of the bombings and massacre in Israel, they have to come together and they have to lead. And so I think there's a couple, and I would be surprised if Ken Buck wasn't one of them, that are kind of out there on the edge. And I think that's kind of traitorous not to stand with the majority. And it's the same thing with the Democrats here. They've got one man who's out there not standing, and it's atrocious, right? And they, what are they going to do about that? What do you do when someone stands up?
Well, what do you think about the idea that the president President Trump came out and endorsed Jim Jordan, and yet Jim Jordan lost in the voting to Scalise for speaker? Does that mean anything?
No, I don't think so. I think a lot of people see Scalise as a true hero and somebody that will stand. Lord knows he laid next to a baseball mound with wounds in him and still came back to the house. I'm pretty sure if somebody shot me up, I'd probably be saying sayonara. I think Scalise is a great person, and I think
Would you
that he
support
be a-
Scalise?
Yeah, I do. You know I do. Yesterday I told you he was going to win. I texted in and said, Brauchler, he's going to win.
Joan, final question. If you were an employer or you worked in a setting, like, would you fire or refuse to hire someone who publicly had come out to support the terrorist organization Hamas, or really any terrorist organization? Would you do that?
You know, I most certainly would. And the reason I would do that is because character matters. And you know what? I have had people steal my lunch from a refrigerator. And
they were probably Hamas supporters.
That's what I'm thinking. And it wasn't even hummus.
That's so funny, Joe. Jeez. Every once in a while you come swooping in. Even Billy clapped. Even Billy clapped behind the glass, Joan. You can't end the call better than that. So I'm going to give you your win right here. Joan's line is open, 303-696-1971. Here's just some texts that have come in. Scalise also compared himself to David Duke, and that's okay with Joan. If that happened, just shoot me the link to that. I don't know that. Here's another one. On the other hand, you do or don't need to keep an eye on the employee. Oh, here it is. Politics, religion, race should not be an employment consideration as long as you keep your politics, religion, race to yourself. No discussion in the workplace. Interesting. Would discussion of that, like I don't think you could say you're talking about Catholicism, you're fired. I don't think you could do that. And I don't think that we would want to encourage that. In fact, I wouldn't even suggest that, hey, you should have a policy of not hiring Jewish people because you have Muslim employees. I don't believe in that either. This is very different than that. This isn't just, hey, I believe in a different God or a different way of expressing my faith. This is different than that. This is not politics, by the way. Support for Hamas is not political, although the Dems here in Colorado sure are making it seem like it is. But if someone were to come out and support a terrorist organization or a specific organization, let's just change it out from Hamas, because I know the Democrats are super weird right now about how to deal with Hamas, especially because of terrorist Timmy. And that is, let's call it Nazis. Let's say that you had a future employee or a current employee who you found on social media out there praising the Nazi party, or out there cheering with them, waving a swastika flag or whatever when things happen to Jews here or anywhere on the planet Earth. Would you take that into consideration, one, and whether to keep them employed, or if they were applicants to your job, would you look and see that and be like, good God, man, I'm not bringing you on board? And I guess the other question I'd ask is, if you wouldn't, why the hell not? I would. Now, if you're a government employer, there may be other limitations to that, but I don't think so. I would be happy to fight that battle. If I were the governor of the state of Colorado and someone who was applying for a job with the state came out and had celebrated the massacre of Israelis, I don't even have to be Jewish for this. I will take a stronger position in defense of Israel and against Hamas and against terrorist Timmy than even the governor, the attorney general, and the secretary of state, and the Colorado Democrat Party, and the entire House leadership of the Colorado Dems, and fill in the blank. I'll take that position. I would say, no, I'm not hiring you. Now, good luck proving it, by the way, but even if you could, I'd fight that battle in court. I would love to have the court step in and force me to hire a Hamas celebrant after the events of what took place just this past Saturday. Take me to court. Prove that I have to hire some evil embracing thug. We know we don't have to do it for the legislature, but would you do it? 303-696-1971. Lots of texts coming in. Here's one. Yesterday, I had a sandwich named Steve. Does that make me Hamas? No, I don't. I don't think that's it at all. Until the people who vote start researching their candidates, nothing changes in Colorado. Right now, the Democrats have people convinced that Republicans are racist, and most voters here believe that. Ultimately, the voters are responsible for the Tim Hernadez appointment. In a weird way, that's true. But the bigger point, and your follow-on text, which I imagine you're probably cranking out right now, is the voters have the ability to intervene. Clown's got to stand for election here in November of 2024. I don't know what we can do to prevent him from doing damage in the legislature in this next legislative session, but we can certainly keep him, the voters of his district can certainly keep from sending him back to the Capitol. And what does that say about them? If you cast a vote for terrorist Timmy Hernadez, what does that say about you? This is the person you want to represent you in the legislature? And if you're Senator Daphne Michelson, gosh dang it, she's got the three names and I'm screwing it up, and that's rude, and I don't mean it to be rude. Daphne Janae Michelson, if that's not right, please forgive me and correct me. But if you're her, how do you cross she's a senator, he's a house. How do you work together on legislation with a guy who has celebrated the slaughter, rape, and kidnapping of people because they share your faith? How do you work with that thug? I'm sorry, I'm going to use his words, gangsta. How do you work with that gangster? This is a statewide embarrassment, and it'll be that way until this guy is convinced or cajoled or coerced by his own party into leaving the legislature. And holy mother of goodness, would you ever hire this guy to teach kids? I mean, outside of some terrorist training camp, he'd be perfect for them. Would you hire him again to teach in a public school? The question, though, is as you sit there, if it's yes, I agree with you, George, I would never hire someone who supported Hamas, and I wouldn't. What then do you say to that organization or that company that says, well, this person's a Trumper? I'm not going to support a Trumper. This person supported MTG or Lauren, or I'm not going to support them. Is that different? If it's different, how is it different? 303-696-1971. I got to tell you about the real estate market, because every day, if you're like me, and I keep my finger on the pulse of this just because I'm interested. If you're a homeowner, you have to know what the values of the homes in your neighborhood are doing. And the best way to do that is to get on one of these listservs. And I'm on a listserv for certain kinds of homes in the Parker, Castle Rock kind of area, Highlands Ranch too. I mean, mostly Douglas County. And what I can see is there's a bit of confusion, but I'm telling you, the market is going through changes, and you don't have to go through those changes alone. There's no way I could navigate this, at least successfully, by myself. I'm too much of a knucklehead. But there are people out there like RIbble who can make this thing make sense for you and take the weight off of you. And here's the cool thing. RIbble is going to be in the studio at 9 a.m. today. I'd love to talk about her story. I don't think we've done this. I don't think we've had her in probably a year. I'd love for you to learn more about her and the way they approach selling homes. It's the only way to do this. There's a reason they have more clients and sell more homes than others. It's how they sell it for more money at a faster pace. You gotta tune into the 9 a.m. or if you can't because you're in the middle of working or something like that, or if you're Kevin the Liar beating your spouse or your dog or something like that, you have got to listen to the podcast and hear about Gaye. She is the real deal. She and her Empower Home team get it done. Call them 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD. You can also check them out at gayhasthebuyers.com. That's Gaye, Gaye, hasthebuyers.com. When we come back, a ton of texts flowing in. We'll get those. Phone line open for you, 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Here's some of the text back and forth. Someone says, don't paint everyone with the same brush. You're way too emotional. I didn't know what that was a reference to, but then they clarified it and said, you've determined that Democrats support Hamas, and that's just wrong. You don't challenge callers who say that. Look, that's their opinion on this. I do not think that Democrats support Hamas, other than terrorist Timmy, and there are some like him, and Rashida Tlaib and the squad. But I do think, and I think you conclude this too, Texture, you correct me if I'm wrong, that there is a very uncomfortable, unjustifiable silence by Democrats to call out those amongst their team who refuse to call out Hamas, and not only refuse to call out Hamas, but stand up for Hamas, and then refuse to call out those who stand up for Hamas. I mean, what has Polis said about it? Griswold, Weiser, those are the three, good math, the three top statewide elected officials who are in a position to do this. And oh, by the way, they're Jewish. My guess is they've all been to Israel, maybe multiple times. And they feel they're palsied. I mean, you see Phil's Twitter feed, and on the first day it's, hey, I stand with Israel. And then after that, crickets, man. Now it's all things like super excited to go out to something Egypt, Colorado, back to the rurals in Colorado to talk about Kroger and Albertsons. Polis is like, look at the trees and the leaves changing, how pretty they are. Are those even relevant in the context of everything going on today in the state that they're elected leaders in? They will do anything and everything to talk about something other than this, when you and I know that if it was Dave Williams on those steps, and Dave Williams would never be on those steps, they would have come out and gone crazy. They'd be holding candlelight vigils every day until Dave Williams was removed. Just hypocrisy and cowardice. Listen, when we come back, we're going to be joined by Professor Micheline Ishay. She's going to make us smarter about Israel and Palestine. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here. We're halfway through the George Show on 710 KNUS. Just 2 more hours to have the conversation with you, but we're going to start off with a special guest. I'm super happy that Billy found her, and she was reckless enough with her career and credibility to join us on the show today. It's Professor Micheline. Am I saying it right? Is it Ishay?
Ishay, yes.
Ishay?
Yes. Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? Now,
fine, thank you.
You are doing your professor stuff right now up at DU. Is that true?
This is correct. I'm the director of the Center for Middle East Studies at the Gov't School of International Study at DU.
Now, based only on my very, very attuned ear, it sounds like you probably grew up somewhere in Texas. Is that the accent?
You're absolutely correct. I would say Georgia. No.
Do us a favor, Professor. And before we get into the stuff that you know and that you can help put all of this stuff going on in the Middle East in perspective for us, tell us a little bit about your background, your education, your experience. I can't read your entire resume that we have here and still have a show because it would take an hour to get through all the stuff you've done. What are the highlights?
The highlight of my background, I've just born in the Middle East, in Tel Aviv, raised in Europe, and studied and stayed the greater part of my life in the United States.
You've been everywhere. You've even suffered a bit as a Scarlet Knight out there on the East Coast. I don't know if you still root for them or not, but great school. I have a good buddy that went there as well. And then you've done a lot internationally. And would you describe your focus as human rights or Middle Eastern studies? How would you describe it?
All the above. I've always been interested in international politics with a strong focus in the Middle East. Lived in the United Arab Emirates and different parts of the Middle East.
Now, I think everybody that listens to this show is already interested in current events. And because of that, they likely know everything that's been reported online and on TV, the gist of what happened. But can you put what took place on Saturday and what is taking place for us now in some sort of historic perspective and maybe help us understand what the next steps might be, the impact of those next steps, that kind of thing?
So what happened Saturday or even Friday night, depends where you were, was the confrontation between Hamas and Israel, but more directly, Hamas infiltrated in the Gaza streets to the south of Israel. At the same time, there were rockets, they were launched from Gaza, which was more a distraction because Israel had the Iron Dome to intercept them. Hamas took some kibbutzim in the south of Israel, and thereafter there was about 1,200 killing perpetrated by Hamas military wing. And today we have a retaliatory action from the side of the Israeli onto the Gaza Strip, which is also costing the life of many Palestinians, some of them from the Hamas military wings and other innocents who are in the crossfire.
How did we get to the place, and I'm getting a little bit way back here. How did we get to the place where there is a Gaza Strip and you have this one of the most highly concentrated strips of land with people in it, 2-point-something million? How did we get there?
Depends how far you wish me to go to history, but we can say that up till 1967, the Gaza Strip was under the control of the Egyptians. And there, after the war of 1967, the Israeli took the Gaza Strip, they took the West Bank and the Sinai. They later on withdrew from the Gaza Strip and locked, the door, if you want, the borders between Gaza and Israel. And so there is a blockade in the sense that Israel only let some, control the electricity and let trucks to deliver food and so forth. On the other side, there is another blockade. The Egyptians are blockading or locking, the borders with Gaza. So we have witnessed a situation in which the Palestinians, ordinary Palestinians, have seen great amount of suffering since 2000, since a great period of time. In 2006, the Hamas was elected, was the last elections ever, and it is a group that is theocratic, not very consistent with democratic and liberal values, and not very representative of its own Palestinian population. It has been reported by Human Rights Watch as a group that detain its own populations, incarcerate it, torture it. So this is what, unfortunately, the Palestinians living there have to have for representations in this point in time.
Well, the election that you talked about, Professor, was it a fair, free election kind of a thing, or was it something else we see in some other countries like, let's just call it Russia, where Putin is installed, but they have a fake election to show popular support?
Actually, the 2006 elections was vetted by international observer and seemed to have been a fair election. But there has not been any election of that sort since 2006. So that's been a long time.
Why is that? 17 years is a long time to go without the voice of the people.
Yes, many reasons. One of the reasons that comes to mind, of course, is the fact that the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Army, or rather the PA, the Palestinian Authority, which is the most influential group and government in the West Bank, not the Gaza Strip, probably fear that another election could bring back Hamas back into powers, because they have not themselves delivered. They didn't deliver also the promises of peace, and didn't rise extensively the promises of the Oslo Agreement. So there's been difficulty for those two groups to unify. For your audience, you need to know that after 2006, there was a war between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, which led a divided Palestinian representation between the West Bank and the Gaza Strip.
Can I ask a couple things that I think we're starting to see from folks who are sympathizers at the weakest? They could be stronger than that, but sympathizers for what Hamas has done, and that is to use words like occupiers, to call Israeli occupiers. What are they talking about, and is that accurate?
Well, it depends. If the Palestinian of the West Bank, if we talk about the lands that were conquered in 1967 by the Israeli in the West Bank was initially the land of the Hashemite, the Jordan Hashemite kingdom. After the peace process with Israel, the Jordanian left the lands for the Israeli, but with the understanding that there will be another state. So this is not properly an Israeli land, and this current government has made, not the current government, the one before Saturday, made a clear statement that they wanted to expand and make the West Bank a de facto annexation for Israel. So it is, in that sense, an occupation. On the Gaza Strip, there is no. Before Saturday, there was no Israeli military occupying the Gaza Strip, but there is a sense of siege since the Palestinians don't have the mobility to cross the border. So I think that the term occupation, when it comes to the Gaza Strip, is incorrect. More of a state of siege, lack of mobility would be probably correct. But we should also remember that the government that is in the Gaza Strip, currently Hamas, has also not only does not wish to recognize the state of Israel, but his 1987 charter is also one that wants the annihilation of the state of Israel. They revised the charter in 2017, and in 2017 they made a similar statement in which they would not recognize the state of Israel. So it makes it very difficult to change the status quo, the status of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
The other things that we've heard here are that, hey, we've got to distinguish between the Palestinians and Hamas. Hamas rules Palestine with, an iron fist, and they have all this. And yet every time I see something out of Dearborn, Michigan, or even from one of the installed Democrat representatives, a guy named Tim Hernadez here in the state, it is to show up and cheer Palestine and to talk down Israel. Is there a way to distinguish between Palestinians and Hamas? Are they the now innocent, powerless dupes of Hamas? Are they can't make a change, or are they all one and the same, or something in between?
Well, it's important, and I've seen it both right, left, those lack of nuanced distinctions. So it is true that the Palestinians cannot be conflated with Hamas. There is no elections, no representation. And if you talk to many Palestinians a week ago, they would just have expressed their dissent to their rulers, to Hamas, which is sort of the de facto government. So yes, I will make the distinction. With respect to Israel, we know that there's been for the past 11 months a democratic crisis because the government, the ultra-right governments, wanted the overall of justice. And that has created and provoked many Israelis to go on the streets for about 11 months in an unprecedented way. So you cannot reduce, just as you cannot reduce American to their government, despite the fact that it's a democratic government, democratic elected government. We cannot reduce government to people. We have to make the distinction at every point in time, and certainly in the case of an authoritarian regime such as Hamas.
Professor Micheline, Ishay, thank you for joining us on this. I want to keep asking you some questions on this. When it comes to this particular attack, some will say, hey, this is just the response to all of these years of deprivation and all of this kind of enforced by the blockade of the Gaza and all this other stuff. But it feels like there are larger geopolitical forces at work here. Why do you think this happened?
Well, it's a number of reasons. Yes, it is true to say that the blockade does not improve. It's seen by many Palestinians as collective punishment and does not improve their livelihood. At the same time, there are countries such as Qatar who send $1 billion. Those billions are not always used to improve the welfare of the Palestinians. We have also another group in north of Israel, in Lebanon, Hezbollah, which is backed heavily by the Iranian, who has been supporting the belligerent and violent technique and means of the Hamas government in Gaza. So all those does not improve or help to improve the situations of normal citizens in the Gaza Strip.
One of the callers had called in and talked to Billy, the producer. You spoke to him before you got on the air here. And they asked, can you give us a little bit more of the history of the Palestinians? And I don't know that we have to go back to David and Goliath, but can you give us some sense of how they fit into that Middle East scheme?
The history in relationship to what's happening today, that's a bit difficult, but okay. So you can say that the conflict between Jews and Palestinians, Jews and Arabs in Palestine pre-1948 already existed, but it really was exacerbated by the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 after the resolutions of the United Nations resolution that there will be partition between Israeli and Palestinian. So from 1948, So 5 Arab states attacked Israel alongside of the Palestinians in 1948. Now, just to give you historical benchmark, because it's a long history, I could say that from 1948 to 1982, Israel was involved in a war, interstate war between Arab states and Israel itself, and always the Arab states would defend the causes of the Palestinians during those wars. Since 1982 to the present, the conflict has been more focused between Israeli and Palestinians. There's been attempted for some peace agreement, the Oslo Agreement, the Camp David II agreement, but that did not meet the promises of those peace processes. And so we have seen the continuing conflict that has not led to a long enduring peace possibility.
When it comes to the conversations that are being had right now about blame for this, and I don't know if it's a take side sort of a thing, but from a historic perspective and what took place here, who is responsible for what happened on Friday night, Saturday morning?
Hamas government was responsible. It was a very sophisticated plan action that probably was the result of more than just provocations with respect to the normalizations of the Saudi Arabia-Israeli normalization peace process that was ongoing. It was very detailed. It was very well acted. The Israelis were very preoccupied by their internal crisis. A lot of the military were in the West Bank. So yes, obviously the blame is on Hamas in this particular round, but for starting the war.
When you look at the response that Israel has taken so far, and you described it earlier on as retaliatory, what's the end goal that you can discern from the Israeli government in power now, and what are the potential ramifications in the Middle East?
Okay, so the end goal, the Israeli government announced that they want to neutralize once for all. I'm just repeating the statement. The military wing of Hamas, not the political wing, but the military wing of Hamas, and bring back hostages at home. That's their goal. They are not so much interested in invasion, although that conversation has been out there. I think that it will take them whatever they're going to say that they are going to make an invasion, but that probably would be not more than, in my opinion, several days of occupations until they succeed in their aim. That is their aim. The instability of the region will occur if there is no major pressure for de-escalation. I think that it's happening as we speak. The Gulf countries are attempting to pressure for more de-escalations now that they have entered some peace agreements with Israel. The Egyptians are always been the mediator between Palestinian and Israeli, are also trying to create some form of pressure. The Americans, they have sent an aircraft carrier prevent or to deter Iranian potential involvement. So in that sense, I think that there is a lot of fear in the media that it will be a very prolonged war that will destabilize the region.
Is that what you think is going to happen, Professor? You think it's going to be a long, protracted war?
It will be a longer war, but I don't believe that it will destabilize the region, because I don't think that there's not enough rational or interest among neighboring countries to see that happening.
Well, so let me ask then, because, recently, and I'm talking in broad historic perspective here, relationships between Israel and Egypt and Israel and Jordan, and not so much Syria and Lebanon, but those have been, I think, very positive compared to where they've been. Are those at risk, in your opinion, with the kind of protracted thing you're talking about here?
So the bastion, the niche Israel, Egypt, Jordan, I don't think it will remain untouched. None of those countries, Egypt and Jordan, wish to have the spiraling effect of a war. Remember, Egyptians have not been, particularly under the Al-Sisi government, extremely favorable to any Islamist group, particularly Hamas or the Muslim Brothers. The Jordanians have a long history of having difficulty with, since Black September, with its own the military arms of the Palestinians. So I don't see them wishing to enter the war. At the same time, we also have a situation where Lebanon has been very weakened. Syria is weakened by protest movement, Lebanon by an economic crisis. So I don't see those entering, at least if they were to enter the war, it would be extremely weak. And so that would not, to my opinion,
and you're talking even if Hezbollah launched something in the north, more than what they've done.
Yes, they can launch, but they would be neutralized by the Iron Dome. I don't see ground efforts in the north that will happen. Maybe I'm incorrect. I'm not briefed by anyone. Just my understanding of the current situations of Lebanon and the weakness of Hezbollah, even in Lebanon itself. As for the other countries, the Gulf country, none of them find of interest. They've never been really the Palestinian supporter, although they claim to be.
Yeah. What about Saudi Arabia? That's the big daddy on the block there. What about them?
So Saudi Arabia, I mean, the recent peace process with Israel is going to be tabled for now. For sure, they cannot move forward because the Palestinian issue is very close to the heart of many of the Saudi Arabians. So it's not going to move forward until there is some form of peace processes or trust between Israeli and Hamas. So I think that's the one country that would just pressure very much for de-escalation. Along the Emirati, the Bahraini, the Moroccan, the Sudani, all of them are part now of the new peace treaty that has existed since 2020.
How much did Iran have to do with this, and how far are they willing to go to continue to try to escalate this?
Okay, so as we know, Iran is also a weakened country because of its series of demonstrations in Iran since last years on behalf of women's rights. Iran has felt that the Saudi-Israeli deal, which provided the Saudi Arabia some form of security protection, is working against its own interests, and as a result of that, has been sponsored, of course, Hezbollah and Hamas in this last attack, in this last outbreak. To what extent they will be involved, I don't think they will, but I might be incorrect. There are enough people, who enjoy saying doomsday narrative. I'm not going to be going that route. I think they will stop there. I think the immediate goal for the Hamas and the Israeli will be to discuss and negotiate the exchange of prisoners and hostages. And that will require truce. That will require, of course, de-escalation. But that is something that I believe Hamas decide to do this attack in order to free thousands of Palestinian prisoners from Israeli.
So they kidnapped all these people and from Israel, and maybe there's some Americans in there as well, but they kidnapped all of them as a way to try to barter the release of other Palestinians?
Absolutely. It's absolutely clear in my mind that that's their goal. They're going to...
Should Israel do it?
Well, they have done it historically, not to the extent that the Palestinian one of the hostages, Gilad Shalit, was exchanged for thousands of Palestinian prisoners. So the Israelis tend to succumb after years and then usually do some of those exchanges. I don't know if this is going to be at the negotiating table. I do not know to what extent they're going to just free and how many Palestinian prisoners, but that was the goal of Hamas for sure.
We're talking with Professor Micheline Ishay. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep screwing that up until we've interviewed you a million times. And I hope we get a chance to do that because you're just chock full of good information. Is there a place on a civilized planet for Hamas?
I would say no. That's the first reaction. But at the same time, nobody negotiates with friends. You only negotiate peace with enemies. It is true that the PLO was seen by many Israeli and the United States back in the War of Lebanon as a terrorist group. Then it moved to Tunisia, and then it surrendered its means, its tactical violence, and then was reclaimed as a potential negotiator during the Oslo agreement. So I will believe that some of the political wing of Hamas could be at the negotiating time. It's very difficult to speak about that now because the war is live and people are in despair on both sides. But I think that could be a possibility on the long run, since they are representative of some segments of the Palestinian population.
Do the Palestinians or Hamas teach that Jews are descendants of animals and teach? I've seen things on social media. Somebody saying that, hey, I grew up in Iran, and we start off the day by chanting "Death to America," "Death to Israel." All this, is that real? Does that stuff happen?
This stuff happens, yes. There's a lot of propaganda, certainly in Hamas. I've seen myself this documentary. But to tell you the truth, I speak enough to some Palestinians, some of them in in Gaza, who tell me and repeatedly tells me that what the people want is the privilege to have a boring life. And it's an interesting sentence because we don't see it this way, but they are tired of those rhetoric. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of even the Iranians. It was just recently, I don't know if you saw it. There was a sport event in which part of the support of the Iranian regime were showing the Palestinian flag, and on the other hand, you had Iranian just booing them because they know that it's a rhetoric that is deflecting the problem that exists in Iran. So the Palestinian issue has been always used by many authoritarian regimes in the Arab world, and in order to deflect the problem that exists internally. This is not to say that there shouldn't be a fair resolution to the Palestinian cause, and this is not to say that the Palestinians are not entitled to their full-fledged right. I'm just simply suggesting that this view about born with a hatred for each other is true, but it could be changed.
What's the long-term solution here? I mean, this is something that's been going on since I think I sort of tongue-in-cheek said David and Goliath. Before that even. Is there any peace in the Middle East here? Is there any chance Israel finds a way to move forward without being beset by enemies all around it? And specifically in the Gaza Strip. I don't even want to address Hezbollah, but just with the Palestinians. And what is that path?
Well, first of all, there needs to be a truce before we even talk about it. It cannot be a military solution. It will have to be a political solution. It will have to include third parties, for sure. It cannot happen otherwise, because they are not ready to just sit at the table, whether it's PLO, Hamas, and Israeli government. So we are not yet there, but it will have to be political. As with respect to faith as to whether that could happen, well, if we know a little bit about history, we know that 80 million people died after World War II, and peace was possible after that because of the genius of leaders, American leaders, Franklin Roosevelt and others, to just come to the negotiating table and to create the infrastructure, not just the good rhetorical words about peace, the good economic, political, financial infrastructure to sustain, for instance, a Europe that will not have war, and that has happened. So I tend to think that people can do, if they want, create those frameworks, but it will have to be enduring, and it will have to be pressured by the international community. My
admittedly less experienced and educated pushback on that would be the things that brought Europe into World War II and the intentional extermination of the Jews by the Nazis. Those kinds of tensions did not base themselves in biblical or pre-biblical relationships and the denial of someone's existence and who owns what land. That feels like a much steeper hill to climb than what we did coming out of World War II.
Not necessarily. The Jews who live in the Arab world prior to World War II coexisted. Jews living in Egypt, in Iraq, did not suffer from any form of annihilation by their countries of residence. So, in fact, if anything, the Europeans were much more hostile and aggressive against the Jews than the Arab countries Some of them initially under British mandate, but after not. So it's not the parallel is not accurate. What the Europeans did to the Jews during the Holocaust was unprecedented, and what the Arabs didn't do during that old period was also remarkable. So we have to remember that. So we cannot go just to Goliath, David and Goliath, when we make those parallels.
Moving just slightly away from the professional and the professor into the more personal, Micheline, Ishay, I want to ask you, when you hear of folks, hundreds, maybe thousands of folks in Dearborn, Michigan, or even those on social media or members of Congress taking the side of Hamas against Israel, what is your reaction to that? And is there a response that's appropriate? And I'm asking specifically because we have this guy named Tim Hernadez, who's been appointed to the Colorado legislature, who showed up on the steps of the Capitol with a bunch of cheering, flag-waving people after Hamas, brutally attacked those defenseless, unsuspecting Israelis and others in Israel. Is there an appropriate response to that, or do we just say, "Oh well"?
No, wherever that argument comes from, it is an appalling argument. I would, as I said before, I do not think we have to distinguish between Hamas and the Palestinian people. It's important. Just as we will have to distinguish between, poor white people in the Appalachians and the white supremacists. They need representation. The white supremacist group would not be the best representation. So I think that those conflation are wrong, and people who should be informed and more educated. I'm glad you asked this question. I hope we can educate people to think differently on that argument. So it is a mistake. Hamas is a theocracy, an Islamist theocracy. It is known, and people can read Human Rights Watch to see the way it has dealt with its populations, with anti-democratic and against human rights mechanism. So I think that we have to keep the two issues separate. The Palestinians' rights with Hamas, they're not the same.
Should we confront those who take up positions in support of Hamas? And I don't mean physically confront, Professor. I mean, should they be taken on in the public square?
The confrontation, we are.
And I mean, with the
right
words
now.
in the debate. Yeah, like you and I are, but with the words in the debates and call them out, especially if they're elected officials. Should we do that?
Well, I believe that, of course, education is important, just as also what's happening to the Palestinians today and understanding that thousands and thousands of Palestinians are in the crossfire today in the Gaza Strip for not having done anything, but just simply being the victim of irresponsible leaders. We cannot just take binary support without understanding the human side of the tragedy.
Professor, I'd love to have you back on. You just know a ton of stuff, and you're willing to share it with us, and I think it makes us better. You should know that texts have come in while we've been talking, some asking questions I couldn't get to, but some just saying, I love this. This is why we need to keep having AM radio in cars, stuff like that. So thank you for doing that. You were very well received by the listeners, and you made me smarter as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Have a nice day.
You too. This is Professor Micheline Ishay. Fantastic phone call. Want to get your reaction to it. Did you learn anything from that? Does it change your opinion at all about what's going on in the Middle East? 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Going to the texts here. It says, George, I just got up. Crazy, huh? Could you briefly review this lady's bona fides? I could. I mean, listen, I was serious when I said I couldn't cover everything that she's done. This is what she is. Micheline Ishay is a professor of international studies and human rights at the Joseph Corbel School of International Studies. That's up there at DU. She was awarded the 2022 Human Rights in Higher Education, some sort of an award. Denver Distinguished Scholar. She was the founding director of the International Human Rights degree. And then all of her educational stuff is kind of bonkers. She's got a PhD in political science and international studies from Rutgers, a bunch of other degrees. She spent time teaching as a professor in the United Arab Emirates, in Israel, Italy, some kind of a fellow. I mean, this list just goes on and on. And oh, by the way, she writes a bunch of books. Her book, The History of Human Rights and the Human Rights Reader, have been translated into multiple languages and are widely adopted in human rights courses throughout the world. I'm just reading this to you now. I'm using my reading voice. The third edition of the Human Rights Reader was published in 2022. Philadelphia Inquirer ranked her history something as a top 10 nonfiction book. I mean, this just goes on and on. I mean, this woman has, and you could also tell when she was talking, if she was bluffing about the facts and the history, she's really good at poker because, man, she just seems to know stuff. And so that was the background for her. I thought that was a fascinating conversation. Here's another one. Our friend Joan, the people of Palestine voted for Hamas. Elections matter. Too bad they've been brainwashed to believe that the Jews must be eliminated. This is very similar to the market in our government. There is a rumor that will be international cell activities on Friday the 13th. Weird. I don't know what significance Friday the 13th has for Muslim terrorists, but I mean, for us, it's, of course, those horrible movies with Jason. But listen, she also said, Joan, that Palestine hasn't had an election for 17 years. So yeah, whatever they elected before, if you can imagine electing someone today and then 17 years from now, they haven't gone away and haven't suffered through another election, I'm not sure you can blame it all on that last election. Anyone, Timmy, at the top of that list needs a one-way ticket to the godless strip, aka Gaza. Anyone that supports a terrorist, that's what it is. Truce won't happen in our lifetime. The Middle East has and always will be a mess. Middle East doesn't have a tradition of peace. Well, that part I don't know about, but I did ask her that question. Like, given the, pre-biblical tensions that existed between these people, independent of any borders of any countries, what's the hope for peace? And then she cited, after the extermination of 80 million people to death, including the extermination of tens of millions of Jews during World War II, she said, hey, we figured out a way to get to a place of peace. This one seems more challenging than that, but she didn't think so. And I'm not sure if I'm in a position to say you're wrong to someone who's got the background and experience she has. Someone says, get Rabbi Gelman on. That's not a bad idea. Do you know how to do that, Billy? Well, we can try. Billy did the whole, who are you? No, he did the whole, I'm going to try to find this out. And then we then we get into text from the conversation that we were having just before that. For my money, the other part of this conversation that happened right at the end that was important is, what do we do about people who come out and take a position in support of what Hamas did, celebrating what Hamas did? Far different than support for Palestine. That those to me don't seem to be connected. And she agreed that there is a distinction to be made despite that election 17 years ago. That is the part that troubles me today, that we have an installed representative in the State House who went out and celebrated with the flag wavers in support of what Hamas did to Israel. And the corollary concern I have, and it's more of an outrage, is that none of the people from his team, from his party, have called him out for it, except for one, Daphne Janae Michelson, who is a state senator, also Jewish, by the way, and she came out and strongly denounced him. But that's it. Nobody else has done it. Every once in a while on social media, you see, I disagree with him. Like, did the Holocaust happen? Some say yes, some say no. Like, it's some sort of a debate as to the rightness or wrongness of this. That was a real concern for me, that we still have folks at the highest levels of state government who just simply refuse to denounce what he has said and done. Meanwhile, guy's about to be a lawmaker, whatever the hell that means. Let's get to the, well, you know what? Let's do this. Frank, I'm going to cut away for a break here. I don't want to cut you off short. We'll come back and we'll finish up the segment with you. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you about some way to make your beautiful home even more efficient, and specifically the kitchen. I told you yesterday, I'm not a good cook. I'm good with the PBJs, anything with a toaster, kind of a wizard, grilled cheese, some egg products. I can do it all. I want to get better, but one of the things that holds me back is I think I have all the spices and tools in the kitchen. I can't get to them. I'm not sure where to find them. Roll them out shelves has the ability to make your kitchen more efficient and, frankly, in that way, more fun. It's just not the chaos of grabbing this and throwing this there. You have the ability to reach back into the nether regions of your very deep cabinets and make them accessible. Pull them out. No more doubling over. No more getting on your knees and realizing how much food has fallen onto the floor between the sink and the oven as that crunches under your patella. No more need for that. You can simply pull out the drawer, reach in and grab all the pots and the spices and all that other stuff. Here's the deal. Schedule your in-home estimate today. Receive your first 4 rollouts installed, no charge. That's $80 in value. You're going to get to see how these people work. Craftsmanship is their calling card, as well as customer service. Give Joyce and Brent Tolliver a call at 303-475-9601, 303-475-9601, or you can check them out at rollemoutshelves.com. When you're spelling it, by the way, roll is R-O-L-L, but M is E-M, like M, like go get them. Rollemoutshelves.com. Let's cut away for a break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Frank from Denver. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. I just don't have a ton of time, but I'm going to give it all to our callers because we love them. Frank, you've got a minute and 10 seconds, and you can have all of it.
Fascinating, educational, intellectual, and balanced, and I hope you get her back weekly for the next 2 months plus.
Same, Billy.
And you probably will get her book for your daughter.
Yeah.
But what I found very interesting about her conversation was she said after the war, the brilliance of Roosevelt, FDR, and Churchill sitting down at the table took 1,900 years for the Middle East, which is always a hot mess, to be wiped out by war, to come to the table, and some intellectual disassociated people, but with an interest in going forward, sat down and tried to plan it out and said, this group will go over here, this group will go over here, blah, blah, blah. And it may not have been right, but now you see this interval between, say, 45 and now, this shorter interval of getting back into trouble again. And on the global scene, it seems to take war or some major warlike event to straighten things out. Hopefully over here, we can do it with honest elections.
Man, well said, Frank. You just nailed the landing. You Mary Lou Retton that thing right now, and that's just a reference to current events. Frank, as always, thanks for the great call, and I agree with you. I want the professor on as much as we can get her, Billy. I just think during this, she's wicked helpful. Here's someone else wicked helpful sitting in the studio with me. We're going to talk to her live next. Her name is Gaye RIbble. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here. Final hour of the show. If you didn't listen to the third hour live, you got to go to the podcast and listen. Professor Ishay from DU Korbel School of International Stuff. I forgot the other word. She was fantastic on the Middle East, and we had a great discussion afterwards. We're about to launch an awesome conversation here about something that affects each and every one of us, some more immediately than others, but every single person that's listening to this is going to be impacted by real estate. Now, you hear me on a daily basis talk up Gaye RIbble. She is a real estate rock star. If there's a Taylor Swift of real estate, it is Gaye RIbble. She joins us in the studio right now. Gaye, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I mentioned to you just before we went on the air that I enjoy your humor. That one was really funny. I had to laugh out loud on that.
I think people ought to know that some of the things that I say dead seriously, Gaye thinks are jokes. So I don't know if that's an indication. Gaye, we've had you in studio before, but it's been a little bit.
It has. Yeah.
I think you were single and childless the last time that we had.
I think
had
it
you
was
on board.
the day of the election.
Oh
the
my
last
gosh.
time. Yeah.
And we get new listeners all the time. For new listeners and those that don't know the background, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to get a little bit of background from you because I think it's an awesome story to tell. You're a Colorado kid.
I am. I'm a native, one of the few.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Arvada.
And where was high school?
Arvada High School. I married a Pomona High School boy.
Pomona Panther,
Uh-huh.
a competitor.
Competitor. Yep.
And Arvada at the time was the Redskins back when you could do the Redskins.
Yeah.
And then they became the Reds.
Yeah.
And now it's downshifted into, I think it's the
Bulldogs.
Arvada Hugs. Oh, no, Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it's the Arvada Bulldogs.
But there is even talk that they're going to take away all the trophies and things that were from the Redskins.
No.
So, I just experienced my 40th reunion.
No,
And,
that's not possible. I'm looking at Gaye. Look on Gaye. If you go to the Rumbles and the YouTubes, you instantly know Gaye is a liar because there's no chance that she's experiencing the 40th anniversary of anything except maybe your birth.
Well, yep. And yeah, so all the Redskins are, all upset about this because they're talking about taking out all the
Unbelievable.
trophies.
They
Yeah.
can't just
Want to
like
wipe out history. We'll just
Oh my
pretend it didn't
gosh.
exist. Yeah.
After high school, how did you end up doing this? And especially where you live. I mean, how did you end up doing it?
My husband was a lender and I was a stay-at-home mom, and he would always come and say, you should do real estate, because he worked with all the realtors.
Yeah.
And he would say, you could do this really well. And so when my youngest was in preschool,
Wow.
and I finally could kind of stretch out a little bit, I got my license, and my second month in the business, I sold 5 houses.
Well,
And
that's
I
a
had
lot, right?
It's
Is
a
5
lot.
okay,
Yeah, the average agent, even yet today, sells between 6 and 8 houses a year.
A year.
A year.
And you sold 5 in your first
And
month?
I had no idea that was good.
Oh my
I mean,
goodness.
I felt like it, seemed
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that was really not typical.
You referenced your kids. How old's the youngest now?
33.
Oh my
I have
gosh.
7 grandchildren.
Listen, I have poor math skills because I was a Jeffco student as well. I was a Bear Creek High School guy.
Well, that explains
Yeah,
it.
that's it right
uh-huh.
there. But that sounds to me like you had kids when you were in middle school. And I'm not judging you. No, I'm kidding.
I was pretty young. I got married at 19, and we're still married.
Look at you. Congratulations.
So
That's
we'll
so
we'll
awesome.
celebrate 40 years this year. So
That
or
is
this
awesome. What
2024.
is
Yeah.
husband a Colorado guy?
Mostly, I think he moved here when he was 8.
Where was high school? Oh, Pomona. You
Pomona.
said Pomona.
Mhm. Yeah.
One of my bestest buddies is a Pomona guy. They cannot really be trusted. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I tell him that a lot.
Yeah. Pomona was the rougher school. It was almost like Alameda. Like if you go to Alameda and you had the Pirates, chances are you had one or both of these things, and that is a tattoo or a switchblade. And that was
I remember our high school team, I think when I was a senior, our basketball team went to state. And so in the playoffs, we played Alameda. They had a good basketball team. And they came to our gym. And I can remember this being this young, naive, and they came to our gym with switchblades, and they cut off our nets, which is, I guess, typical.
When you
I mean, I guess when you
yeah, you
win, I
clip-
guess you do.
But normally you use scissors.
Yeah, well, they had switchblades, and they were there, cutting off our nets, and I felt so violated.
Oh my good
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah. So I'm a local girl through and through.
So you get into this business, and at some point you must have been working for a house, or I don't know what they call it, but like, were you doing this on your own as an independent the whole time, or did you hook up with, I guess today I'd make up some names like Keller Williams or something like that? Yeah.
Well, I started with a different company. They are best known for their balloon.
Oh,
And I was there for
seen
17
pictures.
years.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So, and I was a top producing agent in our office, and I really didn't know. Like they would say who the 1, 2, and 3,
Yeah.
number 1, 2, and 3. And I typically was number 1.
nice.
I worked really hard to be number 1,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
thought number 2 and 3 were like really close,
right
that
up on your heels.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I left and, other people started showing me, statistics and things like that. And,
Oh, yeah.
and it wasn't really very
You
close.
were crushing them.
Yeah, but I had no idea, which was good.
Yeah.
I mean, that was good because it just kept me motivated to have to
Yeah.
keep working because I was sure that they were right on my heels.
My guess is that's why they don't tell you.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yep, probably. So, and then this year in March, I celebrated 30 years of selling real
Oh, my
estate.
goodness.
So, yeah. So I've been doing it a long time.
This market, and I told you we were going to talk about this off air. This market, how would you describe it, and how does it compare to the markets you've seen over the last 30 years?
Well, I would say this market over the last probably 5 years has been so volatile, very up and down. Sometimes it's a seller's market, sometimes it's a buyer's market. Today it's both. I mean,
That sounds weird.
yeah, doesn't
Like,
it?
how could it be both?
Depends on where, location,
okay.
price point, things like
Mhm.
that. There are certain houses, certain price points, or types of houses that are really hot and others that aren't
Yeah.
as hot. And so it's been volatile, and I think it scares people, but it doesn't really need to scare you.
You have a sense of this in a much broader perspective, and have a broader perspective than even just the metro area, because you guys do stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
But how do you get to the point where you guys sell as many dang houses as you do? Because one of the things that we've talked about before is these realtors sell a couple here, a few there over the
Yeah.
course of a year, and you guys are crushing it, putting families in homes by the bushelfuls.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, it's interesting. Even the market right now is down 30-40% from last year. And last year was down from, a lot from the year before. And we're running about the same that we did last year, when others, a high number of realtors are getting out of the business because it's
just too hard.
not making it. And but this is that time when it does matter who you work with, right? There are times when the houses are just selling, and
easy.
you
And
don't
everybody
really-
wants to be a realtor. Tons of
Exactly.
cops are
Yeah.
like, I'm going to be a realtor.
Oh yeah, everybody's a part-time realtor. You call them
Yeah.
at the machine shop,
Yeah.
to
right,
talk about
right.
the inspection and things like that. And so all of those people have gotten out because now it's hard. And now really is the time that you need a professional, someone who knows what they're doing. And for example, I still sell.
Yeah.
A lot of people think I don't, but I do. And I am on target to do 75 transactions, work with, we like to say, instead of transactions, serve 75 families this year.
What is that how do you define a transaction? What is that?
A closing, a house
Oh, okay.
sold. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And we don't want it to be transactional.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
relational.
No, but just to
Yeah.
make sure that's it. And 75 this year?
Personally. Yeah.
That's more than one a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
And if you look at the average realtor, so let's just say 5, right? And
Yeah.
in 10 years, they've sold 50. Well,
Oh, my
and I've been
goodness.
doing this for 30 years, and that's kind of my average year in and year out. And so
Wow.
when you look at that over the course of time, there are probably I don't even know who they would be. There might be 2 or 3 people in Denver Metro that have sold more houses or served more families than I have. There are a couple that do per year more than I do, but they're not nearly as old as I am, and they haven't been doing it as long. And then there are some that are, not many, but there are some that are older than me now, and they don't sell that kind of volume. And so just that volume over that period of time. So that's just me. And I have a team of 13 agents that,
Bang, lucky
we're out
13.
there. Yeah.
Well, with you,
Yeah.
it's 14. So that makes it all right. We're talking with Gaye RIbble from the Empower Home team, Keller Williams. You and I were also talking, and I really wanted to get to this on air. All of that exposure, all of that success, all the homes means you kind of have a unique perspective about where the market is going, what areas of the state seem to sell better than others, and all this other stuff. I'd love to talk with you about that. First off, where do you see the market going? I know a lot of people personally who are like, well, I just bought a house. I'm doing an ARM because I think the rates are going to come down. And others who are like, well, I'm not going to buy a house right now because I think prices are going to go down over the next 6 months. And I'm going to swoop in and grab. Yeah. What's going on?
I don't think either of those things are going to happen. Really, what the Federal Reserve is wanting is stability. Right. Yeah. They don't like the swing of, right. low rates and then high rates and then going back down. We'll never see in our lifetime a 3% rate again. I mean, it just, it just won't happen. I know.
People just yelled the F word at their radios because they're all like, when are we going back to normal? Because that's what we thought was normal.
And that's not normal. Normal is between 5 and 6%. We're
I'll take 5.
I know, really. Right now we're at 7, mid to about middle 7s. FHA, it's a 7% rate. So, and we've seen, I bought my first house and it was like 16%.
Dang.
Yeah. So, so it can go all over the place, but really, they like to see it between 5 and 6 right now. They'll probably keep it here. It's looking like they may do another rate increase.
That's what I've heard
this year, and probably another one the first part of next year. Then I think it will probably hold, hopefully. It's interesting. The National Association of Realtors, the Home Builders Association, and the Mortgage Association all sent a letter recently to Chairman Powell of the Federal Reserve saying, you got to quit because this isn't just going to, it's just not just the real estate market, but the economy, because real estate really drives everything else. So, the market's down, but housing, the number of houses that are available just anywhere that are made, that are standing, are down as well. And so when rates do come down, which probably isn't going to be for 2 or 3 years. So we're probably going to be holding it, between 7 and 8 for the next 3-4 years.
If you're getting an ARM, you are rolling the dice. You are going to get hit.
Maybe.
If it's going to keep going up.
You would get hit if it keeps going up.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's going to continue to go up. Hopefully it won't.
Yeah.
And, we'll have to see after the election that, that's going to change things, wars change things. So, there's volatility that, will just naturally impact the economy, which then will trickle down to real estate. But I think really the forecast is rates are going to go up a little bit more. They'll probably stabilize near 8% for several years. But when they do come down, and sometimes they come down momentarily, like this year, they came down during the spring, which is defined like February, March, April.
Sure.
They came down. We were seeing 6.
Yeah.
And so they came down. But the minute that they come down, everybody jumps on it, right? And what does that do? It makes the prices go back up. So you're either going to have the rates come down and prices will then increase, or the rates will stay and prices will stay. But I don't really see where, prices are dropping a little, but they're not dropping.
Well, talk
hugely.
about that from the standpoint of scarcity. That's real estate's affected like any other commodity. When there's less of it and the demand is high. Why, if the interest rates are going up or at least higher than they've been, than people feel comfortable with, why are housing prices staying either so solid or in some cases even increasing? Why is that happening?
Supply. So it's interesting. And if you understand this, it makes sense. So we go all the way back to the Great Recession. So 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, it lasted a long time. And during that time, all of the home builders went out of business. Like, you can buy a new home. If you go and look for a house that was built in 2011, they don't exist.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So typically across the country, we, up until that time, like up until 2006, we were building about 1 million houses a year across the country. And then we went for 5 years without building any.
Unbelievable.
Or, next to none.
Yeah.
And so that's 5 years of a deficit, right? So that's 5 million. The population is continuing to grow, but 5 million houses didn't get built. And then about 2013, we started looking around going, during the middle of that recession, we had about 47,000 houses on the market in the Denver metro area. So then 2013, we start thinking, we've used up all those houses. We've sold them, and looked around and decided there weren't enough houses. And that's when the builders started building again. But what happened is they never were able to build 1 million houses a year to this day.
Why? Why not?
Labor. All
is it
those
the availability
workers,
or the cost or what?
It's labor workers. There's a shortage of workers to build the houses.
So anecdotally, and you've probably heard way more stories than this, I was talking to a guy that was building a house in our neighborhood. We'd gotten one right about that time, 2013, 2014, when Toll just opened up again.
Yep.
And I'm talking to the dudes that are building the houses and one of the neighbors' houses, and they were like, they'd stalled. And I'm like, what happened? He goes, somebody showed up and offered these guys more cash, and they just grabbed all their stuff and left. And that's just sort of how the market we're in. I'm like, oh my God, that's just craziness. Like everybody's poaching each other's drywallers or framers or roofers.
Still happens today. And still today, we're only building about 750,000 houses a year. So we should have been doing double time, right? We should have to make up for the deficit, the 5-year deficit. We can't even stay with what we were doing prior to that. So every year the deficit of housing gets bigger and bigger. And so now here's the interesting thing. They're saying, you're like, well, at what point will this turn around? There is a point. It's about 17 years from now. Okay. Now, if you do the math,
you will be 50.
Yep. And all the rest of the baby boomers, I'm only 3 months of a baby boomer. I identify as Gen X. So, my husband definitely baby boomer. But the baby boomers will start not needing houses. Right?
Because they're dying?
Because they're dying. They're moving in with family.
Moving
they're
in with
maybe
family,
going to
that.
assisted living.
Or a home. You're right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, just for various reasons, they're not going to need houses.
Yeah. Hey, Billy, just for a moment, keep talking.
Yeah. So,
we're back.
okay. So, at that point in time, there's so many baby boomers, right? And baby boomers, as they've gone through life, it's affected the economies of all different ways, right? Sure. And so now it's housing, is going to be impacted by it. But when they start not needing houses, we will make up for the shortage of houses that there were. But it's going to take that long.
It will have that downward pressure then on
Yeah.
Interesting. What I want to do is keep talking to you. Can you give us another segment, or are you not able to do that?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
What I'd love to do, and we did not tell you we were going to do this, is I'd love it if you risked your good name by taking phone calls. If you would do that, if people have questions, honestly, we'll keep talking anyway. If someone has a question about the real estate market and what to do and where to go, can you talk like that on the radio? Or are there some limitations on what you can say on the radio? I'm not talking FCC stuff.
I can talk. There's plenty I can talk about.
All right, listen, our number is 303-696-1971. This is topical because this is actually impacting policy decisions that are being made up the road here under the Gold Dome. We're having these conversations with all of these, the unhoused, and what are we going to do with this is actually even having an impact. Some social media discussions I've had with folks who are talking about, we need to have the walkable city and we need to de-emphasize cars. And I'm like, people ain't living in the cities, man. They're moving out for reasons we'll talk about. And you got to so I'd love to have this conversation with you. Can you stick around?
Absolutely.
We're talking with Gaye RIbble from Empower Home Team at Keller Williams. She will take your calls, which I think is incredibly foolish, but let's take her up on that at 303-696-1971. Before I cut away for a break, though, there is another superstar. He really doesn't have anything to do with real estate, but you know him better as Dan Kaplis. He has everything to do with the courtroom. I am not going to be able to get Dan on the radio to talk about that Micheline case, which, by the way, jury's in day 2 of deliberation. Midday today, or if not, then it'll be tomorrow. But Dan cannot come on, in part, man, he loves the conversation that we've been having about the case. And this is a guy who's perfect for it because of all the trials he's done. In fact, I wonder if they keep numbers, this guy may have, like, it's Tom Brady type numbers. This guy may have more jury trials as a civil guy than anybody else out there. And in part, it's because he's got a little Methuselah in him. The dude's been doing this thing for decades. Doesn't look it, but he's been doing it for decades. He and Bobber would love to be able to fight the good fight on behalf of victims. All you have to do if you are one is to reach out at 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551. You can check them out at dankaplislaw.com. That's Dan Kaplis, Caplis, law.com. When we come back, me, Gaye RIbble, and some text coming in. Get those phones going, 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS, in the studio with superstar Gaye RIbble with Empower Home Team, continuing the conversation about real estate. I've had some texts come in. Gaye is willing to answer your questions if you dare to call it 303-696-1971. Another superstar. That's all we do here, by the way, are superstars. Except for the host. Somehow we've lowered the bar for the host. I would say the producer, but I think Billy's actually better than he lets on. And that's Mitch Flory. Now, we were supposed to have Mitch in the studio yesterday, much like Gaye, but you know how it is, man. When you're busy doing this, that, and the other, sometimes the schedule sneaks up and clips you, and that's what happens. So we'll get Mitch back in. Part of the story that we told with Gaye that I love is her background, because I think it's hard to really understand somebody's passion or their interest in this thing until you hear about where they come from and what's gotten them involved in this. For Mitch, you know, dude grew up in communist-controlled Romania under Ceausescu, but that just wasn't what was beating in his heart. Dude's an American. He had it in his DNA before he ever crossed the border, legally, by the way. Came here, became a citizen, fell in love, started a family, started a business, and this thing's called The Art of Granite. You can check it out at theartofgranite.com. I will tell you, and I would say to him once he's in here, it's a deceptive name, because it's more than granite. It's marble, it's quartz, which is all the man-made stuff. It's anything you can think of to prettify your home. Now, here's the cool thing too. Mitch will either say, no, first off, you're going to get the wholesale prices. That's just for you coming in the door. But he will say, if you tell him, I listen to 710 KNUS, I listen to the George Show, he will throw in the bathroom countertop for free with the kitchen countertop package. Or if you're only doing the one room, hell, maybe it's even finished in the basement, he'll throw in the sink for free. I would go check out theartofgranite.com, but honestly, I would drive out to his showroom at about Colfax-ish and 6th and check it out, because it blows you away. You can call him on the cell phone that rings in his pocket, 303-386-5919, 303-386-5919. That's Mitch Flory with The Art of Granite. Gaye, thank you for sitting through that.
Yeah.
And we talk
to.
about you like that when you're not here. It's all very positive stuff.
Thank you.
One of the things that we started to talk about was, because you have this experience and expertise across the state, if folks are like, look, I need to move, and maybe sometimes they're stuck with a geography because of school or a job, but let's pretend they have a little more flexibility. I want to stay in Colorado. I want to be within striking distance of my family. Where are the places that seem to be affordable / on the verge of getting hot?
Yeah. Well, not as close to the mountains. So the closer you get to the mountains, the prices go up. So the more of the eastern plains and then northern Colorado. So we are listing a house next week, and I wish I could remember the name. I can't. I'd never heard of it, of the name of this city or town. And
is it Boulder? No, I'm kidding.
No, definitely is not Boulder. But it's about an hour east of Fort Collins.
Okay.
And so one of our great agents, is listing this house, and she was telling us about it yesterday, and she said $600,000 on 30 acres.
What?
With a 6-car garage.
Wait,
and this
what?
beautiful, she said, really nice, beautiful, like 3,000 square foot ranch home. And it's, yeah. And
was
so,
there a crime committed there? I mean, that seems like an incredible deal.
I mean, in town, that's 1.5. And so when you can get prices like that, and with so many people now working from home, they can go wherever and work. And so we are seeing so many of our clients that we're able to serve are in these smaller towns outside of the bigger ones. So, Calhoun and Callahan in Calhoun, Colorado, which I've never been to, but we have agents that are there, and we sell more houses there than anybody. It's like 4 this year, but it's a small town, but nonetheless, they sell pretty quickly because they're nice houses. They're
affordable.
Not that far from a major city, and they're affordable. And so, and even right now they're saying that something like 50% of the growth in the Denver metro area is happening between Denver and Fort Collins. So northern Colorado.
Oh my goodness.
So if you haven't driven up I-25 lately.
And I do. Sons at CSU. I do. Yeah.
So, you start seeing all of those builders, and they're all close to the highway. So it actually, to get from Like Windsor to
Yeah.
downtown Denver is an hour.
Yeah.
People have been doing that in California for decades.
Yeah. But that's
Right?
just going a couple blocks.
Yeah. True.
That drive also, especially as you look to the west off I-20,
Beautiful.
all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, all the time. It is just a glorious view. And they're putting those communities in there.
Mhm.
And you get closer to the Budweiser Center.
Well,
So
you know
that's
what?
up
The
road.
Budweiser Center actually is got lots of things that are going on.
I know.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
I've been to a couple of concerts there.
Northern Colorado is where it's at.
Yeah,
So
it-
it really
it's
is like
booming.
it's really growing there, and prices are still affordable. Even Fort Collins is a little bit less than Denver, than parts of Denver. But like Windsor, which is just on the other side of the highway, is a lot more affordable. Johnstown, Frederick.
Johnstown's
Firestone.
Corner is going to get a Buc-ee's. Do you know what Buc-ee's is?
I do, and I've seen it. I've driven by it, and it's amazing.
It is
Yeah.
amazing. It's amazing. I found Buc-ee's in Texas. And if for folks that don't know what Buc-ee's is, if there's an In-N-Out equivalent of gas stations, Buc-ee's is it. You know what I mean? But it's
Yes.
much bigger than that. But Buc-ee's has like a giant store attached to it. And you would think, oh, this is a truck stop thing. They don't let trucks in there. It has the cleanest bathrooms you are ever going to find, cleaner than the ones in your home, which is crazy, right? Like
You haven't
with-
seen my home.
with boys in the house, I'm telling you, you can go into this bathroom and feel comfortable, you know. Anyway, great thing. So that's going up in Johnson's Corner. Let me get to a couple of these texts. I'm going to put my house on the market in the next 6 months. Does Gaye do work in the Greeley area, or can she recommend someone? I think you answered it.
Yeah, we do. So we work from Pueblo to the Wyoming border, and we have agents that are located in all of those areas. So I'm not driving on a daily basis to
Yeah.
Pueblo and Wyoming, but we have agents who are every bit as good as I am because
Yeah.
I've gotten to train them.
Yeah.
And I work with them on a daily basis. So I'm still very involved in that sale or in the purchase with them, even though maybe not in the flesh. And we have agents up and down the Front Range. And so we can take care of you anywhere, you know, from Breckenridge here and the Eastern Plains of Colorado.
Are the ski towns still just bonkers crazy? And I'll even go beyond that, because I've got friends who, probably because they made smarter post-college decisions with their careers than I did, were in a position to buy those kind of ski home kind of thing up there for
Mhm.
winter park, whatever. So I've thought, well, what about Leadville? What about is there any place that you can see as an opportunity to look up and down that I-70 or a little bit north or south of there?
Yeah. Estes Park.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's not a ski town, but it's a mountain town.
No.
Yeah.
And it's right by the national park, which is awesome.
Yeah. And we sell quite a few in Estes
Really?
Park. Yeah, we do.
Good pricing and stuff
Yeah.
like relative to what
Yeah.
else you see going
Yeah,
on?
they are. Yeah. Lot more affordable than the ski towns.
This is one that comes in that if this isn't in your wheelhouse, Gaye, don't worry, just say so. George asked Gaye if she knows any lawyers who can help with appeals of the recent home assessments in district court or to the Board of Assessment Appeals.
You know, it's interesting with assessments because everybody's taxes went way up.
Uh-huh.
And they went up until so they don't go to today's value. They went up to about mid 2022. So if you look back,
Yeah.
right, last year up until mid 2022,
Yeah.
prices from
Blowing
January
up.
to April went up 30% in some areas.
Hold on, say that again.
They went up because of the fires. We had 1,100 homeless people. And at that time, remember I said during the height of the recession,
Yeah.
we had about 45,000 houses on the market.
Yeah.
February of last year of 2022, we had 1,400 houses
Oh,
in
boy.
the 7 counties that
Oh,
make
wow.
up Denver Metro. And right during that time, rates were low. The Fed was talking about raising the rates. So people who didn't even intend to purchase started purchasing
Oh, yeah.
because let's do it while
Freaked out, yeah.
while we can get these rates. And then we had 1,100 homeless families. And so all of that, it's very supply and demand driven. Real estate is very much that way. And so there was such a low supply and such a high demand that over the course of like 2 months, prices went up 30%.
Oh my God. And on top of that, as folks haven't bought a house recently or a new build won't understand this. If you buy an existing home, you can jump in on that low interest rate and say, I want to strike right now. If you go to a new build, You can't lock in a rate until you're like how many days away from closing or something? 90
yeah.
days.
Mhm.
And sometimes you have to pay to lock
Yeah.
in.
Mhm.
And so you're kind of like playing a game. I mean, you're like
Yeah.
rolling the dice. Like, is this going to keep going higher and higher?
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's different.
So back to the assessments.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
the
yeah.
assessments were assessed at that 30% height.
Oh my goodness.
Then it came down about 30%, I think 29%
Okay.
between April to the end of last year.
Okay.
Kind of corrected itself.
Yeah, yeah.
But it corrected itself, but the taxes were based on the higher rate.
Oh.
So because of that, they in the first like 2 weeks of the assessments coming out, they had more people that were questioning them.
Yeah. Challenging them. Appealing them.
I was trying to come up with the word. Than they had the whole year before.
Right.
And so because of that, they can't even handle it. Right. But everybody thinks because they're looking at what the prices are today, and today they are lower than what they were assessed at. Doesn't matter. What you have to look at is what were they then. So more than likely, and this doesn't happen often, but it can happen more than likely the next assessment, which is 2 years from now, that will be during this time frame, and the taxes will come down.
Oh, I hope
but
you're right.
That doesn't help all the people today.
No, it doesn't.
And we are getting people who are having to sell
because of that.
Because of that. Yeah. In Texas, my daughter's house, their assessment went up $900 a month. Think about that.
$900 a month?
A month in Fort Worth, Texas.
Where do they get the extra money?
Yeah. That's a good question.
Somebody asked me to buy them the home you described with the 6 garages or the 6 the 6-car garage, and someone texted and said, "George, buy me that house." I'm not in that. I don't know how much you think the radio pays. It's not that kind of money. Here's a question. How is there a shortage of house builders, but apartment buildings are going up so fast? And I do see apartment buildings everywhere.
Yeah.
And no knock on people that want to rent in apartments. I understand that maybe that fits their price. But dang.
Well, we were talking about this right before we got on air. Apartments are going up, but you're not seeing condos. Because the laws with defective builder defects and things like that have gotten so bad with condos that we really have not built condos in the Denver metro area for 4 or 5 years. And so you're not seeing those condos. Instead, you're seeing apartments. And that's where first-time home buyers or people, that need something more affordable. Before, it would have been a condo that they would have bought. Mm-hmm. And now there aren't brand new condos available. So that's why there are apartments.
I told Gaye that last night I had reason to be at a meeting with some developers and realtors and all this other stuff. And one of the statistics that stuck in my head, and I'm sure I've screwed this whole thing up, is that they said over, and I forget the period of time, there has been a 74% reduction in the building of condos in the Denver metro area. That is an undeniable impact on available. When we talk about first-time home buyers, and I went through this, if there hadn't been a Highlands Ranch back in the mid-90s that had decent price, I wanted to live in Jeffco.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to live in Jeffco at the time because the houses I was looking at were all out of my price range. I was just a brand new deputy DA. But in Highlands Ranch, they had a bunch of houses, great stuff. But the places I ended up having to look at in Jeffco were condos. And that was the alternative, was I could afford to get in a condo. You earn some equity. You end up moving it. That's not an option anymore. If you can't jump in.
Not brand new.
Not brand new.
Yeah.
Not brand new. That's a real struggle. Gaye, in the final minute that we have, tell folks, one, anything else you want them to know, but how can they get a hold of you and the team and benefit from all this smartness?
So the one thing that we really need to do is, if you are wondering, if you're thinking, should I sell now? Should I wait? What should I do? Have us come look at your house. Let's look, and we can look at what program. We have so many programs that benefit our sellers. We have great programs for our buyers. So invite us in. Let us come look at your house, take a look, give you some ideas of what you can do to get it ready to sell. And we'll tell you if today's better or waiting is going to be better. But so give us a call. So our phone number is
833.
Yep, there we go. 833-301-SOLD. 833-301-SOLD. Or of course, gayhasbuyers.com.
Gaye, spelled Gaye, has
Yep.
thebuyers.com. Oh, we didn't even get a chance to talk about all the big heart, great stuff you do with adoption too. That's another one of my favorite parts of what you do with your
Thank you.
time and your money and your passion and all that. And that touches my life directly in my family.
Oh.
So I'm a big supporter, big fan. Next time, though, we'll have you back in. This is hugely helpful for me. I imagine for a lot of folks driving around, too, who are debating, is now the right time? Sounds like the easy first answer is, we'll just pick up the phone and call Gaye and have him come out, and then we'll have a conversation.
One of the biggest things we do is we strategize with our clients and, come up with what their needs are and how we can best fulfill them.
No pressure. And I just want to thank you for the time and coming in, because you could be out there. It sounds like, based on your current pace, you missed selling 2 homes while you were on the radio here.
The day is early.
Forgive me. That's Gaye RIbble with Empower Home Team at Keller Williams. Before I cut away for this last and final break, before we get to that last segment, I got to tell you about QC Kinetics. I told you that I'm trying to run the Marine Corps Marathon here at the end of this month, which sadly is only about 2 weeks away. I worry that my joints at my age, and I'm only 32, that Gaye laughed again. She does kind of get the humor. I worry that at some point I'm going to ask stuff of my body it just can't do anymore. And I know that there are folks out there who've just lived hard, worked hard, played hard, and it's a knee, it's a hip, it's some other joint. You're going to be tempted to live with it because you're tough. That's not the right answer. You're going to be tempted to go to the doctor, and the doctor will say, how about take some of these pain pills? That's not the right answer. They may even suggest going under the knife, going to some of those awesome orthopedic surgeons out there, and they'll cut you open and they'll fix you up and all that. And you just get the 6 to a million weeks of downtime and rehab. I'm not sure that's the best answer either, but the first best option to pursue is one that doesn't require any of that. We're talking about regenerative medicine that uses you to fix you. That's like a needle. Folks, that's a needle. That's you walking out the same way you walked in the same day. And that's our friends at QC Kinetics. You can find them on the web at QC, those are letters. Kinetics begins with a K, ends with an X, QCkinetics.com, or you can call any of their local medical professionals. And I think you try to stump them. Ask all the questions you possibly can. And their number is 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986, or check them out at QCkinetics.com. That's it for this segment. When we come back, we'll wrap up. I get to say goodbye to Gaye off the air. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes, all in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler back with you here. Final segment of the George Show on 710 KNUS on this Thursday. My great thanks to Gaye RIbble. She's just walking out now. We just kept talking even after the radio was off for you. And then, of course, we have the Spin Doctors right here. One-hit wonders. I think they had one more song that I can't remember off the top of my head, but what a blast from the past. We're going back 3 decades for that one. But Gaye RIbble, speaking of 3 decades, has been doing this forever. And I just love talking with her because she's real and practical, right? Like, this isn't just a sales pitch. It's like, look, let me tell you what we're seeing. Let me tell you what we're experiencing. Another group that I always tell you about, frankly, almost every day, but not every day, are my good buddies at Twin Aspen Dental, Doctors Richter and Snyder. Now, I will tell you, Dr. Snyder, not there when I was there the other day. Bummer for me, but the good news is I got Dr. B, Dr. Brian Richter. And Brian, because he's been holding down the fort with all of his great staff during the entire time of the baby stuff, all the maternity leave, I think Brian is probably due for a vacation. I don't know if he would ever admit that, but I'm like, dude, you've been crushing it. So all I can say is all the things you go through in life, these folks go through too, man. And they're just like regular people. I never felt like, even though we had such a great pace at the appointment I had with Shiloh, I never felt like it was a rush thing or we don't have time to talk and catch up on the kids. And we talked about Trey and Amanda. They're just, I don't know. They're just decent, good people. And oh, by the way, they kick major butt when it comes to your dental health. And they do all the stuff you'd want them to do. The Invisalign, the crowns, the bridges, I don't know what else can be done because I don't need it done, thank God. But they do it. And I love the fact that they take my kind of healthcare, which is from the military. Not every dentist does that. They will work with you to get it done. I'm just telling you, take a knee from your current dentist. It's not an offense to them. Just try out someone else, like trying another restaurant. Try out another dentist. My guess is you're going to be hooked. That's what I got hooked. They're off of Parker Road in Stroh, easy to get to from anywhere. Call them and make that appointment, 303-841-7466, 303-841-7466. That's twinaspendentalcenter.com. That's twinaspendentalcenter.com. That is going to do it for us for this Thursday. I've got one more big fat day with you. That's mañana. I can't remember who we have coming in, but I think we do have a guest coming in tomorrow. And then I get to have a nice, I'm going to say well-deserved week off, even though no one here thinks it's well-deserved, but I'll be off to the UK with the kids, and then I'll come on back and I'll be back with you. So be there tomorrow for that show. Thanks to Billy. Thanks to the professor. Thanks to Gaye. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.